12 o'clock Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines,
clock's run out. Time's up.
Wind is blowing cold and dark. On the road and no way out. Broken hearts, a smoking gun. On the run. On the run.
What we're gonna do right here is go back. Way back into time. When the only people that existed were troglodytes, cavemen, cave women, Neanderthal, troglodytes. Let's take the average caveman at home, listening to his stereo.
Epic tournament. Are you there?
I am here.
Excellent. Hey. Well, hey, man. Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, Epic Journeyman. Last night, another barn burner. Jeez. Hold on a second. We're coming in hot on my iPad on the Aftermath.fm app. And let me just say, it sounds good over there on Aftermath.fm. Thanks to Clyde Lewis. What a great show. Once again, he rocked it until the party ended. And now the after party has just begun. The velvet rope has been pulled back, Epic. And we have some friends here. We have a friend that's going to be visiting us a little bit later. Because we got lots to talk about, man. Do you remember the 90s, dude?
I sure do.
What do you remember most about them? Were you...
Well, you said...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Were you in?
Yeah, and I remember OJ was a big part of it. I mean, it was a monumental moment there. But I remember it was when the video game transition happened, where it went from the 8-bit, 16-bit flat games to the 3D polygonal games with things like PlayStation and Sega Saturn and all that. And they had these magazine articles about our graphics becoming too real. It's just hilarious now. With movies like the Stephen King one with the guy that was living inside the simulation in the Brosnan movie. I can't remember the name, but now all that kind of thing. But that was one aspect of it. It really did seem like it was the end of the innocent time and the really focus on the digital age where and DVDs were starting to come. They weren't out yet, but you knew about them, right? CDs were starting to take over for the analog tapes and albums and things like that. So yeah, it was a real transitional time. I mean, people think it's kind of obscure, but if you think about what's going on right then, that was the cusp of the cutting edge of the digital starting to take over the analog.
Well, I remember being in the 90s and thinking to myself, man, in the future, there's never going to be one of those retro periods where everybody remembers the 90s. Like there was periods where they, started making tie-dye shirts again and people started slicking their hair back like the 50s and stuff. These time periods just show up again, but now they're, commercialized. Everything that was, you can buy it at Target. It's passé, ladies and gentlemen. But anyways, there's more to the situation than meets the eye. And we got so much to get into. And before we do, let's just...
Something's wrong. Hey, hey. Now it's a mambo Italiano. Hey, mambo Italiano. Go, Joe. You mixed up Siciliano. Oh, you calabrese do the mambo like crazy. And hey, mambo, don't want a tarantella. Hey, mambo, no more a mozzarella. Hey, mambo Italiano. Try an enchilada with a fish bacalao. And then, hey, gumba.
Giuseppe Vafangulo. Are you there?
I'm here.
Excelente. And Dave Scorpio. Are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Fantastico.
Good to hear you, man.
Fantastico. Are you still down south, or have you migrated north?
The countdown is on, Jimmy. I've got about 1 month left here, and then I am gone, baby.
Like a rocket. Like a rocket. Well, hey, gone just like 1995. Now, before we get into some of this here, I just want to check in with y'all. And Epic, maybe you can check in the chat room over there. See what people are remembering about the 90s. I mean, like I was saying, to me, the 90s seem like a...
Porn. They remember porn.
That's what they remember?
Yeah, I think that's hilarious. But it was a heyday of the video industry. I was in the video industry at the time at a video store.
Yeah, it was.
And that is a heyday of porn, and having to not look at the magazines under your dad's stairs. That's right.
Well, I never did that myself, but it's funny that you should mention that, because I mean, I was thinking about it earlier today, how people today have a whole sexual education through porn that you didn't used to be able to get it. The only way you got it is if you actually had experience, or somehow you saw a magazine. But I mean, magazines were few and far between, so mostly you had to rely on experience. And so it's funny, two-sided coin, because the guys got experience, they were better in bed, which made women happy. But if women did the same thing, well, they were called sluts. So there was kind of the weird situation there. But anyway, Giuseppe and Dave, we are going to time warp back to 1995. What do you guys remember about the 90s before we do that? Either one of you could jump in on it, because I mean,
you take it first, Giuseppe.
It's a blur, right? The 90s, really?
Oh, no, it's not a blur for me at all. It's lucidly real. My band was at its pinnacle, and I was part of the CD-ROM boom, working for a largest independent manufacturer in North America. And so it was the 90s were a great decade for me.
What about you, Dave? Were you up in the
90s were definitely a great decade, before things turned really weird in 2001.
Mm-hmm. Well, leading up to
but I also remember that living in Southern California at the time, that all the good weed came from Northern California,
mm-hmm.
and it was verboten, very illegal in San Diego County and
mm-hmm.
Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to get your hands on unless you knew the right guy.
That's right, man. Paralyzing pine. They grew it good. They grew it fast, and they grew it right here in Northern California, and they're still growing it, man. Right now, as we speak. As a matter of fact, if you sniff real hard, you might feel a breeze coming out of your speaker. That's coming straight from the Santa Cruz Mountains. Some of the best weed in the world comes from the Santa Cruz Mountains. And let me just say, I've sampled it all. No, not at all, but quite a few. It's into the microcosm, and
it's astounding.
We're about to go back
Time is fleeting.
to 1995.
Madness takes its toll. But listen closely.
Not for very much longer.
I've got to keep control. I remember doing the time war, drinking those moments when the blackness would hit me and the voice would be calling. Let's do the time war again. Let's do the time war again.
It's just a jump to the left. With your hands on your hips.
It's so dreamy. Oh,
The President of the United States. Our job here is to expand opportunity, not bureaucracy, to empower people to make the most of their own lives, and to enhance our security here at home and abroad. And we ought to do it together.
In stark contrast to the president's vision of government as a force for good, others had a very different vision of the government.
I say to you, there is nothing patriotic about hating your country or pretending that you can love your country but despise your government.
The rhythm and tone of politics in Washington was changing. The '94 elections had given Republicans a majority in both houses of Congress. One of the president's most outspoken critics was now Speaker of the House. Newt Gingrich wanted to balance the budget with cuts in areas such as health care, education, and the environment. President Clinton opposed the cuts as fundamentally contrary to his vision of what good government should do. On the international stage, both President and Mrs. Clinton had become powerful voices for change.
Engaging in honest dialogue is not an act of surrender. It is an act of strength and common sense.
Strength and common sense. There he was. He played sax on MTV. Next thing you know, President of the United States. Well, there he is, Bill Clinton, President of the United States. Didn't he balance the budget? Was he the only one that has ever balanced the budget? Let me ask. Go ahead. Any of you guys, was he the only president that ever balanced the budget?
That was
the official story, but
that was all
I don't
a
think
sham.
that's what actually happened.
We'll go into it. It sounds like I hit a nerve. I hit a nerve on Dave Scorpio. Go ahead, Dave.
I think there was some creative bookkeeping going on, and essentially he raided the Social Security fund and just did a lot of creative bookkeeping to make it look like he had balanced the budget.
Wait a minute. You mean I'm not going to get my Social Security? Oh, wait a minute. They're going to call it universal income now. That's right. Because all the Social Security money's gone. I remember now. Man. Well, listen. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, we're not here to talk about all this other crap in 1995. What we're really here to talk about is O.J. Simpson trial. Because last night we were having a little bit of discussion, and it came up, and I thought to myself, it's been a long time since anybody's talked about the O.J. Simpson trial, and has anyone ever talked about it with the eye of a 2021er? You know what I'm saying? Because, listen, things are a lot different now. When you look at one of these crimes, isn't it? You guys, every time one of these things comes up, what happens? Everybody scours the earth, and they're trying to find reasons why it was fake. Right? Well, I'm asking. Right? Everybody's looking for reasons why this shit is not real. It didn't happen. Nobody died. All that kind of shit. You know what I mean?
There's a conspiracy behind every corner.
Right. Well, how come no one's gone back and looked at the O.J. Simpson case? I mean, just look at it, man. Look. Everybody involved is a B actor. What? Listen, O.J. Simpson, what is he in? Airplane? You know what I mean? Yeah, he was a running back. Yeah, he hit 2,000. He hit the 2,000 mark. But still, after that, what was he? B actor. Kato Caitlin, actor. Wasn't...
Well, O.J. Simpson was in Capricorn 1, a movie about faking a moon landing as well.
Yeah, Mars or something. They went to Mars.
Yeah, Mars, yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, go ahead, Epic. How many movies was O.J. Simpson in? He was in quite a few, but he was a B movie actor. He wasn't in anything really big. Right?
Capricorn 1's a good one. I liked that one a lot, actually. I saw that in the theater, believe it or not. And Naked Gun movies, made him really popular. The public was really fond of him. He had a good comedic sense. At least it was depicted that way in the movies. And so, he had kind of a resurgence in his popularity, really. He was probably at the peak of his popularity at the time that the murder happened. Excuse me.
You think he was
being a running back? Yeah.
You think he was at the peak of his movie career at the time that this happened?
He was working. This is the irony here. At the time of that murder, he was working on a movie about seals, and had gone to like a commando training camp kind of thing, not a real one, but all the techniques and how to do everything, and to be more convincing in the role. He was trying to be an action movie kind of guy.
So that would explain why he had like a black skull cap and he had like this black turtleneck and his little black pants and his little black shoes. He's kind of playing.
That's true. Here's the thing. Like, if it was a setup, I think he did it personally. But if it was a setup, he did have all the props. He did. He had the knife. He had all the like I said, the black cap and the sweater and the whole 9 yards, the sneakers. So yeah. I mean, it would be a perfect time to catch him. What if he was going to a photo shoot or something, or going to film some clips for the movie at the time this happened? And he had all this stuff in his bag. It'd give him a good excuse to get rid of it, wouldn't it?
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying that's what happened, but and I'm surprised lawyers didn't use that as a alibi.
Well, we're going to get into that in a minute, but I'll tell you what, we've only been on the air for about 3 minutes, and you've already come out clean saying you thought OJ did it. So see, this isn't. See, this isn't over because he got found not guilty both times, didn't he? Or no, he did his civil case. Did he lose the civil case?
He lost the civil case, yeah.
He did. Well, let's go back to the murder. Okay, what I'm curious about, one of the things you guys and this is a big point of this whole trial, was the DNA evidence. Now, we're going to get into that in a bit, but what I want to ask you is, and let's see if you guys know. Now, they used the DNA evidence to try to convict OJ with it. But did anyone ever do any DNA testing on the blood that was all over the place on the ground? How do I know that was human blood I saw everywhere? And there were so many problems with the collection of the evidence, wasn't there? Yeah. And wasn't it down in Los Angeles? I mean, who was the coroner when this happened? Who was the medical examiner, and was it the same medical examiner who examined every other celebrity murder over there in the Los Angeles area?
He was a pro, as far as being called into court as one of his major gigs.
Didn't
he was like literally was in almost every one of those cases.
He was. Didn't he go to New York when Epstein was supposedly? Who was that guy that flew to New York? The coroner. There's some coroners, like celebrity coroner. Every time something happens, they go there and they get they say their piece or whatever. This is the expert. He's been to all the killings. Yeah.
There's two. I'm gonna have to separate that to look them up because
all right,
one's
go ahead.
Goes all the way back to JFK actually.
All right. Well, let's time warp back to a little bit of news. Let's refresh our memories a little bit.
He was the love of her life.
It was love at first sight. They were a very dynamic couple.
We begin tonight with a murder investigation.
Both victims savagely attacked.
Stabbed nearly 20 times.
Blood everywhere.
Both dead on the sidewalk.
Nicole's been murdered.
She was absolutely terrified for her life.
She said what? He's gonna kill me and he's gonna get away with it.
Please surrender immediately.
A lot of people didn't want to believe it.
New, tantalizing mystery.
Stop this cover-up!
It's ludicrous.
It makes no sense. It doesn't fit.
Did he have the means? Did he have the murder weapon?
If he didn't do it, who else did it?
Did O.J. Simpson really kill Nicole Brown?
Hour. Last call at 17:51 hours. For Station 18, additional information on the 187 suspect. Control 1. Subject is being tracked via his cellular phone.
These pictures were taken from our news van as we traveled in front of the pursuit. The driver is O.J. Simpson's longtime friend, Al Collings. He looks like he's driving on the wrong side because we are taking the pictures through a side view mirror. At this point, we believe O.J. Simpson is lying in the back of the Bronco with a blanket over him. The pursuit began around 6 o'clock after the suspect's vehicle was located following a police trace of a cellular telephone call from the truck.
First of Oscar Romeo Echo November Tango Hotel Alpha Lima. Last of Simpson, male black, 6'2", 210 pounds, 46 years old. Subject may be located in the El Toro Y area. Subject is being tracked via cellular phone. Subject made several calls in the last hour.
Thousands of people lined the freeway, many on the overpass. Many others simply stopped their cars, got out, and waved. Some had signs saying, "Go OJ." At one point, O.J. Simpson appeared and pointed a gun to his head. Police backed off and never made any attempt to stop the Bronco. The Los Angeles Police Department, the California Highway Patrol, and Orange County Sheriff's deputies, as well as a number of other agencies, took part. The pursuit started on the 405, went to the 55, to the northbound 5, to the 91 West, then back up to the 405. At this point, you can see Callings passing us and frantically pointing his way to officers, making sure they were able to follow him as he headed toward the mansion.
On the streets of Cali. Threw on my dope silk suit, brushed off my suede ballets. Threw on enough gold for any girl's pleasure. Left 1.5 pounds of that shit still in the dresser. I slapped a clip in my 9, threw a clip in my sock. Picked $3 up off the dresser, it was 10 on the dot. Now my
do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help your black ass? You goddamn right. Won't you tell everybody what the fuck you gotta say?
Fuck the police coming straight from the underground. A young nigga got it bad cause I'm brown. And not the other color, so police think they have the authority to kill a minority. Fuck that shit cause I ain't the one for a punk motherfucker with a badge and a gun to be beaten on. And thrown in jail, we can go toe to toe in the middle of a sale. I'm a teenager with a little bit of gold and a pager. Searching my car, looking for the product. Thinking every nigga is selling narcotics. You rather see me in the pen than me and Lorenzo rolling in a benzo. Beat the police out of shape, and when I finish, bring the yellow tape to tape off the scene of.
Word, I just got out. Punks tried to move in the club, and we shot our bullets everywhere.
Okay, what's the problem?
Got popped, he's dead as a doorknob.
You bullshit.
I ain't fucking around, the posse's rolling tonight. Nigga, are you down?
I grabbed my AK, my 16 and my baby Mac, strapped on my vest and threw the 9 in the small of my back. I said chill, don't let nobody move without me. Say you know where they are? He said
I know where they be.
Peel they caps back.
We about to peel they caps back. Mine's Jimmy, it's in the microcosm. Aftermath.fm. It is getting to be just about 11 o'clock. In about 15 minutes, we're going to have Mr. Gates joining us, so stick around. Got a caller coming in, guys. Stand by. Let's grab this call, see what's going on, see what they want. But anyhow, 608, you have joined the Into the Microcosm Neon Knights of the Round Table. What have you to say this evening?
Jimmy G. How's it going?
Hey, it's going.
Way cool.
Hey, way cool, Snoopy. That's good. It's great. We don't take calls until midnight, and so you're calling me right in the middle. Oh! You're calling me right in the middle of us getting ready to do.
I wanted to. I apologize. I was. You were talking about the coroner that does all those stuff. I think it's Michael Baden. Mm-hmm. I think that's the guy's name. That's he was the OJ coroner and like all these other coroners and stuff. Check that out.
Interesting stuff. All right, way cool. Well, just stand by there. Just put yourself on hold because we got some talking to do, and we got to get some information on the table. So, ladies and gentlemen,
I'm just gonna mute up, and then you call me. I won't call you.
That sounds good.
I'll mute up.
All right, I'll meet you right here. I muted him. There he goes. He is muted. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about in the O.J. Simpson trial. Now, I think this was watched by more people than any other television production in the history of television up until that point. I could be mistaken. What do you guys know about that? Do you guys know anything about the amount of people that were seeing that show every single day? I know I watched it every day when it was on because I was living in Los Angeles and I was trying to be an actor, so I was home all day. So I definitely sat around and watched it. I know a lot of other people did too.
Yeah, it really changed things because before that, one of the first cases ever broadcast from Court TV that really caught on was the Menendez brother trial.
Yeah,
and it was huge. I mean, it nobody anticipated that kind of response as far as people watching it. And when OJ, it just took it to the next level. And in fact, it did a lot to make
Court TV,
cable news agencies, also become more popular.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was the first Persian Gulf War that really made CNN, put them on the map, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was this, the OJ trial and the Menendez brothers trial through Court TV that really brought cable news back into the forefront.
Mm-hmm. Giuseppe Vafangula, Dave Scorpio, what did you guys? Where were you guys when the O.J. Simpson trial was going on? Because I was, like I said, I was in Los Angeles when it happened.
Well, I was in San Diego, and I listened to the whole thing on the radio. I was working on paintings at the time, and I listened to the entire trial. And it's kind of funny too, how it was extremely popular. There's no question about that. And Journeyman mentioned the Gulf War. Of course, you can't mention that without the CNN green screen, controversy, pretending like they were there when they really weren't.
Yeah, I'm remembering this. The guy that was ahead of the forensic investigation, and I'm trying to remember his name. Was it Fung? Was that the guy's name? Fung? I can't remember that dude's name, but I remember there being a lot of mishandling of some of the evidence. Do you guys remember that guy's name? Was it Fung? I'll go look it up, but in any event,
it's a huge cast. It's a huge cast of characters. It's the first time we've had that many people that were experts that I can ever recall. Being in a trial like that. I mean, there's like 8-9 different lawyers just for OJ. The lawyers, right, including old Kardashian, right, himself, right. So there you go.
Exactly. So, hey Giuseppe, are you over there?
I'm here. One interesting thing about Robert Kardashian is he was. Many people believed. There's video of him, I'm looking at it right now, of him carrying what people believed was the bloody evidence that he disposed of. So he destroyed the evidence because the bloody evidence was going to convict OJ, and good old Kardashian did what any a lawyer would do. He cheated.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember that. I haven't seen that in a long time, but I remember that. I remember that came out. Yeah, it's the stuff that he supposedly threw in the trash can, the bloody clothes, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then the Kardashian saga continues with Caitlyn Jenner, running for governor coming soon.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's all too much. It's all too
much.
much.
Well, the icons involved, right? There's Bruce Jenner's Mr. Wheaties box himself, right? And then he gives it all up to become a Mrs. basically Caitlyn there, and then Kardashian with OJ, who was another icon, of sports, more than anything else before he became an actor, right? And then another icon, and now we have this cultural icon that's an icon for no reason. It's the daughter of Kardashian. Just a weird ties there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so. What did you guys feel about it? Now, a lot of people were upset about the verdict. Some people were happy about the verdict. I know there was a lot of triggering issues for a lot of people, and using this as a social engineering situation. First of all, it's a black man with a white blonde model that was used to piss people off. Certain group of people doesn't like that. Those people automatically did they automatically think OJ was guilty just because he was with a white woman? Was that shading the trial? Was that shading a lot of the people's idea? Because certain people were happy when OJ was found not guilty, and some people were upset.
I remember that was the first time I heard "no justice, no peace," man, during the OJ trial.
Yeah, I mean, but it was like even when he was in the low-speed chase, everybody was go OJ, go run OJ. You know, everybody was like, yeah, they were on the overpasses there. Everybody was it was like the working folks were for OJ, and I don't know who was against him at that point when he was doing the chase. It seemed like he had a big slice of the demographic was pretty happy about it. They seemed to be, you know, reveling in this low-speed chase. What was going on? It's just me and the crickets, ladies and gentlemen. It's in the microcosm.
Well, I think one of OJ's friends was with him, too, that was a retired football player. I forget the guy's name, but another famous football player was in the car with him, convincing OJ not to commit suicide.
Al Cowlings, yeah. And it turned out that the detective, one of the guys who's chasing him, who's also featured in the trial, was one of the guys who talked to him on the phone to talk him down, because he said, I loved her too much. That was the famous thing. I loved her. They got to bring this up in the civil trial, but they couldn't bring it into evidence during the criminal trial for some reason. And the thing is, yeah, he actually had gone over the edge and was going to kill himself. I mean, it's well known history now, but they weren't allowed to bring it into the trial. So you had the detective whose name I forget. I have to look up as we're getting into that, but yeah, so many, like a huge cast of characters. But that's true. Al Cowlings was driving him, and he was on the phone when they talked him out of the Bronco to surrender and stuff. That was the police officer was actually trying to use his skill as a negotiator, basically, to keep him from hurting himself.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's all too much, ladies and gentlemen. Here, let's listen to this right here. You ready?
All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. 10 a.m., Los Angeles. Outside this courthouse and all over the city, Angelenos hold a collective breath.
Oh, the juries are coming out.
A long 10 minutes pass, and then... Here the crowd is mostly jubilant.
LAPD guilty!
The reactions do not always fall along racial lines.
There are a bunch of white folks here. A bunch of white folks. A bunch of Latinos that believe that OJ was not guilty.
That was not the case in two very different neighborhoods, where the reactions confirmed what the pollsters had always said. People's perceptions of the O.J. Simpson verdict are largely connected to the color of their skin.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of...
To understand why so many patrons in this restaurant were literally jumping for joy when the verdict was read, you must first understand that so many in the city's black community simply don't trust the criminal justice system when it comes to meting out justice to black defendants.
Regulars at the Boulevard Cafe cheered for the former football hero as if he had scored the touchdown of his life, a victory, they said, that sent a strong message about police who live above the law.
If they had the evidence, they should have not messed with it. If there was two gloves at the Bundy crime scene, you should have left it there. Don't try to implicate somebody if they wasn't there.
There were 9 African Americans in the box. And every one of them have had somebody in their life somewhere at some time touched by injustice. OJ was not on trial. All of the Mark Furmans were on trial. LAPD and their racist mentality was on trial. Everything that Daryl Gates gave birth to was on trial.
It was apparent early on that race would be a key factor in this trial. A majority of African Americans polled believed O.J. Simpson was not guilty. However, here in Brentwood, about 10 miles and a world away from Baldwin Hills, the majority white population had a different view and a totally different reaction.
All right, Madam Foreperson, you've had the opportunity to review the verdict forms. Are they the same forms that you signed, and are they in order? We brought a TV to the Juice Club, where patrons began watching the verdict with a poker face, only to be shattered.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson.
Granted, they were sequestered for a long time and they haven't been exposed to what we have, but God.
So that you can afford a high, big shot lawyer and have a lot of money for the case, you can get off with anything.
You know what? Johnny Cochran will be a rich guy. He will make a fortune. He will get lots of clients now, and I hope that he can sleep at night because he got a double murderer off the case. He's going to go home and feel happy. And what about his kids? How can he even look at his kids?
This afternoon, a residue of bitterness settled among the people here. A sense that justice is as much a casualty in this case as the victims themselves.
I think it's absolutely appalling. It gives me no faith in the jury system whatsoever.
The verdict may have resolved the question of one man's guilt or innocence under the law, but it has also revealed, perhaps laid painfully bare, two solitudes of race in Los Angeles.
The jury has spoken. They did the right thing.
I think it's a disgrace. I'm shocked.
I gotta say, the faces on those white people over at the juice bar, wherever they were. One lady was standing in front, her mouth opened up real super wide, and then she's walking off. She just could not believe it. It was just, I mean, this really, I mean, if you remember, I mean, were people, were you guys around people when this happened, the verdict? I mean, were there arguments around people wherever you went? This was like a big thing. Everybody was talking about it, and and the verdict, go ahead.
I ran a video store. I heard it all the time. I saw it lifetime when it happened. I was off work and got to watch it at home. But yeah, for the following weeks afterwards, I mean, you heard every side of that story. And yeah, I was like in my own seclusion, basically, with outside influence, convinced he did it. So when the verdict came down the other way, I was like, what? I would have been one of those guys with the weird faces because I was like, no, there's absolutely he did it without even all the evidence in there. But listening to everybody who was a customer come and tell their side of the story why they thought he didn't do it, because I'd ask them. I had a good relationship with a lot of the customers. They'd tell me why they thought it wasn't. And it all came down to them really just believing not so much that the police framed him so much. Well, actually, that was the thing. I mean, it was that the custody of the evidence. They believed that excuse, and that the history of the LAPD setting up black people in particular to get a conviction more than the actual evidence. Really, it was that history, right? That there was a history of the LAPD not being exactly neutral on the race issue, and so that was their excuse. I mean, they believed if the glove don't fit, you must have quit. That was enough, basically.
That's right. Well, what did you guys think of the verdict, Giuseppe and Dave Scorpio? Because, like I said, at the time, people were really behind OJ. I mean, and like they were saying, it wasn't about the crime, it was about the system, and it was like the people saying, hey, what did you guys think of the verdict? I mean, how did you feel? Did it cost you a situation? I mean, you guys get any scraps, any arguments? I mean, what was going on? Because people were pissed, like I was saying. There was people that were pissed, and there was people that are happy. And anybody that said anything against it or saying anything wrong against the verdict, well, you got a whole whipping. You got a tongue lashing from people back then. It wasn't happy with you if you said anything about it. Go ahead.
Well, between my bandmates, I mean, I would see them 4 or 5 days a week between gigs and rehearsals. We were very busy then, and my own corporate job. The people I was around, everyone, in my discussions, I thought that whole trial was just a clown car. I mean, it was just one ridiculous, silly screw up after another, and just ridiculous, obvious, clumsy machinations by both these high-priced lawyers and the incompetent DA and the prosecution, and it was really amazing how corrupt the LAPD was back then. And then OJ himself, is a boob. Let's face it. His claim to fame was playing a boob in every movie he ever played in. I mean, the guy's got about a 82 intellect, and he just was. His manager himself was savvy to parlay his phenomenal professional football career and college football career into celebrity and Hollywood B-list, maybe C-list functionality. I mean, I thought his biggest claim to fame was when he was part of remember back then Monday Night Football was a big deal, and Howard Cosell would regularly go back and forth with the Juice, and the Juice liked to give Howie shit. But I thought that the nuttiest thing in that trial, and I mean, I thought it was literally laughable. I mean, I knew either way it was going to be a farce of a verdict, but the thing that blew my mind about the Juice is when he's on the stand, he said that if he owned a pair of Bruno Magli size 12 shoes, he said Simpson was no, and then he went on to elaborate, I would have never worn those ugly-ass shoes. And then he was immediately confronted with a photo of himself in the National Enquirer nine months prior wearing those exact same shoes. And then 30 more photos of Simpson wearing those shoes were entered into evidence. And so, clearly this became the foundation upon which all the lunacy of cancel culture and critical race theory is now built upon, is the idea that you do not look at the evidence of a crime, you look at the societal implications of the class conflict and the racial conflict, not what was done, who was murdered, what happened, but how does it play for the various audiences, which to this day is deeply offensive to me. And now it's just we're the lunatics have taken over the asylum.
It sure did. I stumbled a minute when I said gender instead of race a minute ago, and the reason for that was we're talking about the buffoonery of the both sides in that case, right? And what the prosecution did, it put Marsha Clark in charge because they wanted to have a woman there, because they chose 9 black women to be on that jury because they thought that they would sympathize with the idea of a spousal abuse situation. They'd be more attuned to that, right? Which is a major assumption to make. Yeah. I mean, it's a stupid assumption to make. You know what I mean? Because that would win over race. So they have the appearance of not looking like it was a racially motivated verdict because of things that have happened in the past that didn't go well for LA, right? So they thought, well, this time we're going to nip that in the bud to start, and this is how we're going to do it. And the only guy who was half decent was the DA, whose name I can't remember. The other DA, the assistant DA, who seemed like he kind of knew what was going on the whole time. Like, this is a fiasco, right? He said so later in shows he appeared on. But yeah, all those guys, they were all just a class or cast of clowns who came in there, and they parlayed people's dispositions and hatreds and used it exactly like a social engineering experiment to not only influence the people on the jury and the people who are watching, there at the courthouse, but everybody at home. I mean, that really did look like it had all the telltale signs of being something that was intended from the get-go to get massively produced and see what it did.
Yeah. And, Orenthal is not a name you hear every day. That's a very unique name. And, of course, OJ's playing number was number 32, almost a 33, guys. And, of course, there was a third position in this whole was he guilty or not thing. There was a conspiracy theory that entered into the fray there. Essentially that, his wife and Ron Goldman were running up huge cocaine debts and even dealing cocaine. Ron Goldman was allegedly dealing cocaine, and that OJ was set up by a cocaine cartel for lack of payment on a bill when OJ refused to pay their massive cocaine bill.
Yeah, that was the whole Colombian necktie thing.
That's right.
Right? That's where I learned about the Colombian necktie. You know who else Johnny Cochran reminds me of this guy.
That's what this country's all about. That's deplorable, unfathomable, improbable.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem. Now, when you took a sip, did you notice it was hot? All right.
I can get my own damn coffee.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem for them. It's an infringement on your constitutional rights. It's outrageous, egregious, preposterous.
You put the bomb on? Who told you to put the bomb on? I didn't tell you to put the bomb on. Why'd you put the bomb on? It's got chocolate, peanuts, nougat. It's delicious, scrumptious, outstanding. If you're gonna put a bomb on, let a doctor put a bomb on. Could you repeat that? So a maestro tells you to put a bomb on and you do it? No, Doc. She didn't.
Jackie Childs. Seinfeld. He reminds me of Johnny Cochran, doesn't he? A little bit. You think maybe he got a little bit of inspiration from Johnny Cochran? Johnny Cochran was a good lawyer, wasn't he? He got OJ, didn't he? Look at OJ. Wait a minute now. Isn't OJ in jail now still? Or did they let him out? He was in jail in Vegas last time I heard. Is he still in jail? Nobody knows? We'll tell you what.
He's out. He's out.
Is he out? Is he out again? Oh, that's good for him.
Oh, yeah.
Good for him. Well, he's free again. God damn it. Free at last. He's free at last. God damn it. He's free at last. Well, listen. You know what? This whole thing is reminding me of something. You know what it reminded me of? Reminds me of this movie from back in 1957 called 12 Angry Men. You guys
that's a great movie.
It is a great movie, and here's a great scene from that great movie.
Understand you people. I mean, all these picky little points you keep bringing up, they don't mean nothing. You saw this kid just like I did. You're not going to tell me you believe that phony story about losing the knife and that business about being at the movies? Look, you know how these people lie? It's born in them. I mean, what the heck? I don't have to tell you. They don't know what the truth is. And let me tell you, they don't need any real big reason to kill someone either. No, sir. They get drunk. Oh, they're real big drinkers, all of them. You know that. And bang, someone's lying in the gutter. Well, nobody's blaming them for it. That's the way they are, by nature. You know what I mean? Violent. Where are you going? Human life don't mean as much to them as it does to us. Look, they're rushing it up and fighting all the time, and if somebody gets killed, so somebody gets killed, they don't care. Oh, sure, there's some good things about them, too. Look, I'm the first one to say that. I've known a couple who were okay, but that's the exception, you know what I mean? Most of them, it's like they have no feelings. They can do anything. What's going on here? I'm trying to tell you. You're making a big mistake, you people. This kid is a liar. I know it. I know all about them. Listen to me. They're no good. There's not a one of them who's any good.
So this is one of the jurors in the trial, and he's talking about those people. He's talking about them. He's talking about they. These people, they don't value life as much as we do. Those people drink, and somebody ends up dead in the gutter. You think that was what it was like at the trial, OJ and the jury? You think there was somebody in there like this guy? Like this character here? Because this is a 2-minute and 46-second clip, and I think he's about to get his smackdown. Do you guys want me to continue with this last minute and 23 seconds of this clip?
Absolutely.
All right, here we go.
I mean, what's happening in here? I'm speaking my piece, and you... Listen to me. We're this kid on trial here. His type. Well, don't you know about them? There's a danger here. These people are dangerous. They're wild. Listen to me. Listen.
I have. Now sit down and don't open your mouth again.
Someone tell you.
Sit down and shut up. 12 Angry Men, ladies and gentlemen. It's in black and white. Everybody, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 jury members are now walked away from the table and standing with their backs to the guy that's saying all this. And there's still 2 guys at the table, and 3 guys kind of off to the side. So you can see by the demographic of this video right here, I mean, when this racial shit was going on, you could see the jury members that were going to make decisions were not with this guy. They were not with him. And it looks like percentage-wise, it looks like the same percentage as what we saw at the trial. So we're getting some messages here. I just want to say Bruce McDonald has reminded me to bring up the release of Bill Cosby recently. out of prison. I think that happened, yesterday or day before yesterday, I think? Yeah. But is it's a racial justice theme is the point. So why did they release Cosby now all of a sudden just because they made a mistake in the trial? Something
procedural.
Like
it's gone up the whole ladder chain of command to they really didn't follow the proper procedure, but they didn't want to let him out, so they kept delaying it and kicking it up. So I mean, he's got like 28 other people who are going to charge him. This is only temporary, but he actually, what they did was wrong. And if you, I mean, of course, all this judicial legal horse shit is selectively enforced these days, but if you look at what happened to Bill Cosby, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, well, what happened to Bill Cosby was pretty bad, but allegedly what happened to those girls was bad too, as a result of being.
Oh no! I mean, as far as if you're gonna supposedly follow the rules, the rules were not followed for him. What he did, he's clearly a mass mind rapist and physical rapist. That guy's a psychopath. But I mean, even a psychopath should have rights. I mean, and the system should be but it isn't anymore. It's crazy. I mean, the decay of the legal system, it has no credibility anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you have to sit here and that's the difficult part about having the country that we have and having the system that we have, is that the speech you have to protect is the speech you hate the most. That's what makes it really difficult, because once you start silencing the hate, it's not the same place we used to live in anymore. So I mean, I know fire in the theater and all that. That's not the point. The point is, though, is that we have to protect our speech. It's all we have, right? So if we don't have that, I mean, does anybody even here feel like you have freedom of speech? I mean, I know we do here, in certain places, don't we? Kinda.
Yeah, you know what though? You're right though, that the first victim, Giuseppe, it was Bill Cosby, the Me Too movement, wasn't he? I mean, really, as far as first guy to go to jail, and then Weinstein came after. But yeah, so now that was the first time in recent memory that I can think of where people had to self-discipline themselves to be careful what they said, more so than they had in the past. Like you weren't allowed to have an opposing point of view. I mean, I'm all for protecting the women and getting the information out there and making sure that this major topic gets all the attention that it deserves. But at the same time, you weren't allowed to take the male side of anything. It was bad enough already, But this made it like, oh no, can't talk about that. Just like it became. The OJ trial showed that you couldn't say the wrong thing around your friends sometimes about OJ, because people really believed he was innocent sometimes and framed, and it was a lot of times due to the race or due to their social upbringing, where they grew up, what where they were, and what their income bracket was. Right, made a difference. Yeah, the division of society, right, and now it's in more personal terms when it starts getting around that very sensitive issue of sex, right? And how you can't go ask a girl out anymore, right? Almost, it's almost that bad.
Well, I mean, didn't go ahead, you guys.
Well, I was just going to say, to address your question, do we still have free speech? I believe we as men in our age group, I think we're all, within 10, 15 years of each other. I think we still own the fact that we have free speech and we say what we want. But if you look at large swaths of the younger population, they're so controlled by this cancel culture and all this thing, they do not have free speech. And because they're cowards and they choose not to have free speech. And simultaneously, the various state and federal government operatives are trying to take away free speech. We still have it, and if we don't fight for it, we're really going to lose it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the bottom line is whatever's socially acceptable will be talked about. And if it's not, then it won't. So if you're in the majority and we all decide we're not going to say this and we're not going to talk like that anymore, and we're not going to, I mean, because there's a whole thing that's built around this thing, not just the OJ trial, but just this whole thing in general. You're not, without being able to, express yourself, and when you're stifled, that causes frustration. The frustration builds up, and it becomes, festering wound and festering, situation that's about to blow. It's like a pimple, It just festers until it reaches this point of maximum capacity, and then it's going to blow. And so the thing about it is, when you're taking away people's ability to let off steam by saying something, then the steam builds up, and then what do you have? Do you have these incidents where you see mass shootings where people are getting shot because they're stifled, they can't express themselves, they're not allowed to say this, they're not allowed to say that. If we all decide, were you guys, I think in the 90s is when this actually started too. Sarcasm is offensive and hurtful. Sarcasm in and itself it's an aggression against people when you're being sarcastic. And I live in Santa Cruz, California, and like people actually, like, if you made a sarcastic joke, they'd say they shame you, and it's sarcasm is a passive aggressive way of hurting and damaging someone.
It's a microaggression, Jimmy.
Yeah, but the last thing you're trying to do is hurt somebody. You're not trying to hurt somebody by being sarcastic. You're trying to be funny, because we were taught that sarcasm is funny. I mean, that's when we were taught to laugh at the things we were told jokes, and we were taught to laugh at the punchlines. When the audiences in the TV shows laughed at something, they were showing us what was funny. They were showing us what to laugh at, the jokes we could laugh at down at the office. Well, all of a sudden, the laugh track changed. And there's still a bunch of people that were trained to laugh at certain things, and those things aren't funny anymore. Those things are hurtful. That's not funny. It's hurtful. You're not having fun anymore. Now you're hurting somebody. It's like you're trying to hurt. And that's not true. It's just that we've been trained in different modes of operation. What's funny, what isn't. What's it okay to laugh at, what it isn't. What's it okay to say. Self-censoring is just as bad as having somebody telling you can't say something. Kriston T. Harris is sending me messages. He's in California. I guess he's at the...
Nice. Tell him hello.
I will in a minute as soon as I can put my... I can type with one hand. He's in Cambria at some festival or whatever, and because of that, he sidetracked me, and I forgot what I was even saying. My name is Jimmy. It's in the microphone.
We're talking about... Yeah. Sorry. We were talking about self-censorship, right?
Well,
how people were being motivated prior to be witty, to be intelligent, to have intelligent humor and banter, to be quick on their feet, and to say things that way. And it's like the self-censorship also takes away that ability. It makes people, it's almost like you're dumbing down your conversation just so you can make the people who can't understand it tag along. That's not the way it's supposed to work. People who want to tag along are supposed to learn more words. They're supposed to learn what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Educate themselves if they don't get the joke. We're not insulting them because they don't get it. And this whole thing with the Me Too movement, as much as I stand by the women who are abused and people should know about it, it doesn't mean that all of us have to not, ask a girl out anymore or change the way that we approach women in the sense of it forces us to self-censor and makes all these poor guys that get out now that are, never see a girl anymore, man, just stay home. These incels, right? Involuntary celibates. It had a massive effect, and I would argue that the incel movement itself was a social engineering project that this was the end result of. Not the end result, but part of the result.
Yeah, but this freedom of speech issue and the ability to express, everybody's got a stereotype. Whatever group you belong to, there's a stereotype there. And the other groups, they all know what those are. And those used to be little ways to poke fun at each other. White people can't dance, that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and it's important to be able to laugh at ourselves and laugh at the human condition, and they're trying to take that away because everything's offensive. And once you destroy humor, you destroy the ability to diffuse so many different things. If you can laugh at something, then it's diffused. And what they want to do is keep the tension high on all points.
Well, let me ask you this now, because we ask ourselves about the training all the time. Now, were we specifically trained to laugh at these are stereotypes funny? Why do we laugh at the stereotypes? I mean, why is it funny? I mean,
it's funny because you're not supposed to notice it, but everyone does. And then when you say it, it confirms what everyone was thinking all along. That's what makes it funny.
So it tickles this secret funny bone inside of us where we kind of want to say whatever somebody said about the stereotype, but we don't. But we can laugh at it when they do, and it kind of like gets us a little funny bone tickle. Because we all want to point out the differences and don't want to recognize the similarities, right? So it's easier to see the differences, but when it comes to the similarities, well, that's not that funny. Finding out how much we have in common, that ain't funny. You know, it's funny. It's funny to find out what you do that makes me, you know, that's typical for the people that, you know, from where you come from, whether it's color of your skin or where you're born or what religion you are. All of these things seem to come into play, don't they? There's stereotypes everywhere there. You know, look at George Carlin. Look at George Carlin. How much of his comedy is sarcasm? If sarcasm all of a sudden became a crime, he wouldn't have been able to. What comedian would ever have been able to be on stage if sarcasm became a crime?
Right. No Don Rickles, that's for sure.
Well, imagine Sam Kinison trying to come up through the ranks today. Wouldn't happen.
No, but I mean, I'm asking the question: would we have missed anything if Sam Kinison didn't come up? What I'm saying is, what was funny about Sam Kinison is not funny anymore, and the reason it's not funny is actually kind of shameful. And to fight to be able to say that shit makes you look a little weird to the younger generations because they're not with it, man. It's completely a different scene for a lot of people, man. It's not the same anymore.
Well, without Sam Kinison, we wouldn't have the most offensive joke ever, the homosexual necrophilia joke. Not an easy thing to pull off.
No. Not an easy thing to pull off, but
not at all.
There he goes, though.
You know, Jimmy, I would counter that it is all still funny, and anyone who can think finds it all funny and also is able to see that this is an insidious form of mind control and social conditioning to have all these young color revolutionists and these young social justice warriors. They're doing so much and they're so serious, and everything is a trope or a stereotype when in reality it's simply a fact, and you need to have the function of mind that allows you to deal with facts. And some of the some of the tropes and stereotypes are unpleasant to deal with because they're ongoing facts, and the real intent is to dictate a behavioral change in some of these subgroups instead of the inversion is, oh no, instead the majority has to tolerate it all and accept that it is it's just how it is. No, it isn't. There should be a decorum in society, and whatever you want to do on the fringes, it's always been the fringes. And now the lunacy of the inversion is that the fringes, the mentally deranged fringes are steering the bus, and literally, like that great song by Fun Boy 3, the lunatics have taken over the asylum.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. But you know, the thing is there used to be something called the majority, okay, and then there used to be something called the minority. Now, when they used to call it that, they would say the minorities, because there were several groups of people that weren't as large as this one over here, the majority. So you had these minorities, but you know, in a democratic republic, for the most part, whoever gets the most votes is going to win. And so if the majority is the one who decides how your civilization is going to be, right, in the past. But all of a sudden, that power seems to be taken away from this group over here called the majority. All of a sudden, all of these minorities over here, this group, these guys are all banding together, forming one giant group of disgruntled outcasts, people that have been shamed, people that have been racially discriminated against, all these different groups that have had all these wrong things done to them all this time. They're all trying to get together and form one giant group that becomes the majority. And when that happens, then these guys over here that used to be the majority, well, now they're going to be the minorities. And all of a sudden, the tables are going to be turned around on the majority that used to be, because now they're going to have to take a dose of the medicine that all the other people had to take before, when they were the minorities. So what do you guys think about that? Is the majority changing, the demographic changing across the face of the earth to a point where we're seeing the 1% getting ready to change the way we live to accommodate the new demographic? What do you guys think about that?
The homogenization. Yeah, we're talking about humor earlier. To address this a little bit, I think we have to talk about the humor, because a sign of intelligence is your appreciation of humor, right? That's why humor works. So for intelligence to further and be part of our culture, people have to look at a number of things and look at different things and think about them. If you don't think about them, you won't appreciate the humor. It's how you learn sometimes. And the recognition of the truth of something sometimes is the thing that makes you laugh, right? That's why I always say they laugh. It's because it's true, right? Well, when you start to homogenize an entire culture, I mean, and create one giant, thing that just incorporates everyone, it doesn't have any distinction, then where can you go? Where can you learn something separate? I mean, there's a reason people want to go visit Spain. There's a reason people want to go to Greece or go to Hawaii, right? It's because they had separate cultures there, different from their own. They could learn something and appreciate something new. If you take that all away, which is what's happening in Europe, especially Sweden, that's why they're so mad, right, all the time, then where does that leave us? If we have a common thread that's so big that it's no longer a thread, it's a rope we can hang ourselves with, then we're not going to grow. It's only going to be the outcasts who become the minorities again, who have something different that other people can appreciate, and they'll long for it. And that's where they'll go on vacation or go to get away and be around something new. Yeah, I probably messed that up, but you get the point, I think.
Yeah, I get the point. The point is that we're all different, okay? And celebrating diversity means a lot more than just, it's been taken over by a certain group. But the thing is that we all can't be the same. That's what makes everything great. But we all should be able to be ourselves. And see what I mean? If I'm a atheist, I'm not. But I'm just saying, if I'm an atheist and I don't believe in God, I should be able to be that and do that. That's me. If you have a certain sexual preference, you should be able to do that, and that's you, because none of that stuff's anybody else's business, really, is it? Is it anybody? Why do I need to know what your sexual preference is? That has nothing to do with us in society, does it? Unless I'm, you think that I'm somebody that has the same kind of an idea as you do, and you want to find some common ground or something. But I mean, other than that, why do I need to know somebody? I mean, are we to a place where you can never make an assumption anymore? And should we have ever made assumptions in the first place? You know what I mean? So, because most people are in the majority are heterosexual, and you see somebody, should you assume they're heterosexual? I mean, do we make assumptions based on, what we think or the way society used to be? Because honestly, I think society's changing, man. It's changing in a way that a lot of people that were the majority are not okay with. And then, maybe it all started here. It started at maybe these O.J. Simpson trial. Don't forget about Mark Furman. Don't forget about Mark Furman. We'll get into Mark Furman here in a bit. We're going to open up the phones in about 15 minutes. Snoopy, call back. I just didn't want you sitting there on hold. And so what do you guys think about that? making assumptions based on stereotypes. All of these things are these are social conditions that have been put on us. Like I say, when I'm looking at it, I mean, what makes these jokes funny? Why is it funny to point out the shortcomings of another person? Why is that funny? Why is the sarcasm and the shortcomings of another person, why is that funny? And I'm asking you guys this because I got raked over the coals one night at a party I was at with some people because I made some sarcastic jokes or whatever, and there was like, you know, some SJWs at the table or whatever, and they laid a whole trip on me about sarcasm being a weapon and all this stuff. And I started thinking about it. I was like, Jesus Christ, man, I can't smoke a cigarette. I can't be sarcastic. You know, what's left of me? I got nothing left. You know, you're taking away everything I had. And I think a lot of people feel that way too. A lot of the things that everybody held dear before, the way they were clinging to, you know, remember Obama calling everybody the bitter clingers? Remember that? Clinging to your Bibles, clinging to your guns, clinging to your freedom of speech. You bunch of bitter clingers. Are you guys bitter clingers over there? Let me know if you are, because I'm going to go check the perimeter, and that means you got the comms there, Epic Journeyman. And nobody call in until I get back. I can't answer the phone. I got to go check the perimeter, though. I will be right back. Epic, this is in the Microcosm Aftermath.fm, Monday through Friday, right here at 10:30 Pacific, every night, immediately following Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero and Beyond Zero. And this is the party after the after party, the underground, the alternative to the alternative. And let me just say, the Wolfman. Yeah. Go ahead, Epic Journeyman.
Yeah, I think we'll talk a little more about the humor, because I think there's two kinds of humor. There's the lowbrow humor, right? And there's what we're talking highbrow humor, which isn't necessarily highbrow humor. You have to be, you know, such an elite to understand. No, just it's complicated. It requires a certain amount of intellect to understand. It's well thought out, and it's always been, you know, you had both kinds. You had the slapstick was the major mainstay of silent films in a lot of ways. But the things that were done by Chaplin were brilliantly thought out. We think of them as kind of slapstick, but they were social commentaries as well. So what do you guys think about that? Like, how do the two meet?
Well, I think that they meet in the idea that there is a universal kind of reaction people have when they see someone trip and fall, and they laugh, and it's called, in the German language, it's called Schadenfreude, and, you know, you laugh at someone else's misery. It's like a nervous tick almost. You know, you don't mean them any ill will, but it's funny to see a prat fall unexpectedly, and that's just and what Jimmy described earlier is a vestige of this whole social justice warrior and this cancel culture. This all dates back to a very small group of plutocratic, demonic malignancy that have been out to restructure society to benefit themselves. They have a great hatred for European traditions and legacy. They've implemented something called the Kalergi Plan, which is purposefully destroying the white holes in Europe and America. Let's face it, white people have always been a minority, and so they deserve their little piece of the global geographic pie. What was bad about that is that the inequality that arose from the fact that the European is more has better work habits, has higher intellect, has more self-discipline, so that should be something that the rest of the world should aspire to. But instead, again, in this inversion to destroy society, to create a buffer of chaos and anarchy in between the malignant satanic elites and the rest of the chaotic anarchistic world, that's the goal. So humor, if you can control humor, it used to be everyone would find things funny, like the humor of a Seinfeld, or even the Three Stooges with all their lowbrow humor. It was still funny to everybody. And now I don't even know what is funny anymore. I don't really pay attention to modern culture too much. I'm trying to think of have I watched a comedy lately?
If you go back and look at some of the like Richard Pryor shows, you go back and look. I mean, you know, through a certain period of time, the society was really just all together. I mean, you look at Richard Pryor shows, it was a mixture of black folk and white folks. You know, it was a mixture. It wasn't everybody that there's a comedian of color and everybody in the audience is that same color. So, you know, I mean, it wasn't like that. And I don't think it's like that even right now. I mean, you can go look at some, you know, occasionally there's some white performers that go to the Apollo, you know, and they're funny. And people, you know, black people having a good time, black people laughing. Everybody's laughing. Everybody's having a good time. Everybody likes to laugh at each other, you know. Everybody likes to point out the differences and laugh at each other and have a good time. But for some reason, that's become no buenos. It's no bueno. Okay? It's not.
Well, Jimmy, speaking of no bueno, I think we have to look at the public school system, which has been teaching these children that speech is offensive and hurting other people's feelings is the worst thing you can do. And essentially being indoctrinated into a totalitarian mindset without being told that that's what they're being taught.
That's right. Well, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. But we don't say that anymore in school, do we? And if we do they say one nation under God? Because I don't think it's one nation under God anymore, is it? I think God is even in question at this point. Especially when you hear some of the reverse speech where he's telling us about how they're going to teach us not to love our Savior and all this. So, I mean, what is left in society that seems to be anything like it used to look? Because I mean, everything looks like it's either in flux or it's totally changed. John Wayne's living on Brokeback Mountain. You know what I mean? They're tearing down all the statues. They're getting rid of the stars and bars because it means racist. It means you're racist if you've got the stars and bars on your bumper. Would you say the majority of people with stars and bars on their bumper are racist? Or would you say if you had a stars and bars on there, it just means you're a rebel? Like you put it on there, it wasn't because you like slavery. You felt like a rebel. You want to be a rebel? You want to be a rebel? Yeah, man! Go against the system. You know, what was the Confederate flag for? They didn't want taxes. The northern liberals were trying to come down in the South and tax some people. It wasn't about slavery. It was about taxes.
Well, Jimmy, you know what is super dangerous and disturbing is you've got this cancel culture and this changing with social justice warriors. Not only what's allowable in society and in the media, but they're rewriting history. And if you look at all the massive totalitarian, communist, murderous regimes, and we're talking about millions upon millions of people murdered, they all started the same way. They cancel out history. You know, a lot of the American history is nothing to be proud of, but it should be studied to understand how to improve this country, not wipe it away to serve the dainty feelings of the fringes.
No, and I mean, I don't know if people even know this, but did you know that the first person to sue to keep his slaves was black? It's a black dude, man. First person to keep his slaves was a black dude. So, you know, not everybody owns slaves. And like I said, the war wasn't about slavery. It was about taxes. And were the slaves let free, or did they just create a system where everybody's a slave? And they just don't call you a slave. Because, I mean, you know, it kind of looks the same, doesn't it? I mean, it kind of looks like a company store with a freed slave that has to send 50% of his money back to the massa. That's what they used to do when they let you go. They said, you know what? You know what, Maurice? You want to go to the city? You want to be free? Go ahead, man. You go ahead to the city. You can be free. I don't want you here. But you will be sending me 50% of whatever you make over there now, won't you? Because that's what happened. Industrial Revolution. You're going to send 50% back to your massa. And that meant you had to live on the other 50%. So where you could live on that 50% was where you could afford. And a lot of people had to afford it and live in those same places. And those are the same urban environments, the same cities that we have problems in. And nothing's ever changed from those places where the original slaves came in and worked. Those places are still the same. But the northern liberals have been getting money for these people's conditions and never seeming to make the money get to where it's going. So nothing's changed. We're still, and now we're all slaves paying 50% over to our massa, the government. Bow down, take a knee for your massa right now. And pull out your wallet and let me see $1,000 seed come into the government. You know, that'll increase for you by tenfold if you plant that $1,000 seed. No, seriously, we're at a point where Biden in that reverse speech yesterday said they said that they've initiated the meltdown. The meltdown to me when he was talking about it was they've inflamed a bunch of people to go against people that have actually no problem with anybody. Now, listen, I've been white all my life. I don't know one single person, not one friend of mine that's got a racial issue. I don't know any black people, friends of mine, that got racial issues with anybody either. Nobody seems to have any issues with everybody, but everybody seems to have a problem on the news. Everybody's got a problem with each other. Are these people that have a problem? Are the problems real? I don't know if they are because I'm not black.
Hey Jimmy, I'll tell you how it flows with almost every functional or rational human. Is you see someone, it doesn't matter what their color is, how they're dressed. You see them as a person, right? If you're in any way a modern human, but then that individual's actions dictate how you see them. For example, I've been robbed with a gun in my face twice, and so I have been jumped. I've had 5 bikes stolen from me that I worked hard for and bought, right? And so people like that, I no longer see them as human. I see them as a quite a distinct slur. And so that's that. But they define themselves as that in my mind. I have no sympathy for them. I came from nothing as far as a working class family, that our business was ultimately forced out of business by corporations. So I've had nothing handed to me. And when somebody steals something from me, when somebody puts a gun in my fucking face, they no longer are just a person.
Yeah, and also I want to just add to that and to say that if someone did put a gun in my face and they were a certain color, I wouldn't judge every other person who was the same color as them based on my experience with the one guy who shoved a gun. I'm making an assumption, but if somebody stuck a gun in my face, it's the guy who stuck the gun in my face. So is that a warning signal? Because I see somebody on TV that did something, did a crime. Is that training me that when I see that kind of a person that I should think that kind of a crime is going to happen? Because I have long hair and some of my teeth got knocked out in a car accident. Okay? Am I a crank addict? Okay? When I open my mouth, my IQ drops 50 points in a job interview because my tooth got knocked out. See what I'm saying? So stereotyping is it costs everybody, and a lot of it may or may not even be true, and I don't know. It's in the microcosm. It's getting to be about midnight on the West Coast. How you guys doing? You guys gonna hang out? You guys sticking around? We're going to start opening the phones, start taking calls. Dave and Giuseppe Vafangul, are you guys going to stick around?
Jimmy, I'm
I'll
gonna
be here
I'm
until
gonna,
further
I'm
notice,
gonna
Jimmy.
bounce.
Okay, we'll check you out, man.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
what a great show.
Hey, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, man. There he goes, Giuseppe Vafangul. What about you, Dave? You sticking around?
Yeah, man. I'll be here until further notice.
Right on. I think Bruce McDonald is going to be joining us here in a few minutes, and we are going to be opening up the phones here directly. But before we do, I need to go check this perimeter, man. So, Epic Journeyman, I'm going to throw it to you and Dave, and I'm going to go step outside for about 5 minutes. And when we get back, I'm going to open up the phones, and we're going to get some discussion going on, see what you think about the OJ trial. Guilty, innocent, Mark Furman, a racist, the LAPD, racists. It almost got to a point where the racism aspect of it had taken away the spotlight from the actual crime that was committed. So mine's Jimmy. I'm going to set out to the perimeter. Epic Journeyman, you got the comm.
So Dave, are you down in San Diego right now?
No, I'll be there in about a month, though, man.
I'm going there soon myself. I miss some Mexican food. That's the main thing. I can't wait to get back there. Friends there, they're great too, but man, I gotta get that Mexican food. But I brought it up because San Diego is a great, in my opinion, I've lived all over the place and visited all over the world, and it's one of the best places as far as a melting pot culture goes. I mean, everybody's there. So, there's a huge Latin population. There's, a huge black population, huge white population, everybody from Europe, Hungarians, Russians, everybody's in San Diego. Huge Russian population in San Diego, if people don't know. It's one of those things that I never grew up racist. I never even thought about it, I grew up most of my school years there. I started in Tucson. I was too young for that to remember much of that, but I remember a lot. But as far as that kind of cultural relevance aspect of it. And I wonder, in the time you were there, did you really experience it too much, or did you think kind of like I did, like it's such a metropolis-based kind of society, but it's also a melting pot society that it was there, but you never really had the kind of venom you might get in the Deep South sometimes, where people would discuss things with that kind of overriding motive, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I always lived near the beach or on the beach, so it was, a lot of different types of people there, but a lot of Brazilians too in San Diego, but certainly not, man. I never experienced any racist culture in San Diego, even though at the beach there's a lot of white people surfing and all that kind of stuff, but San Diego was always really kicked back. It always felt like a small town until like the early 2000s. It was kind of weird. It was like a big small town depending on what part of the city you were in.
Yeah, that's true. When I was growing up there, the population of San Diego was like 250,000 when we first moved there in the 70s when I was a kid in school. And it was like 1 million people for the whole county. So San Diego County is huge. It's the size of, I think, Switzerland, right? Yeah, or the same size as the Big Island of Hawaii, actually, which is a good thing you can look at on a map and see without looking at the county lines on San Diego. Just look at the globe and see that, and so it's a very big area, and it never felt like a big city at all until somewhere maybe even the 90s where it started really getting big. It's like what 7 million people now, 8 million people. It's the 8th largest city in the United States last I looked. And it's still a great city, but man, I tell you, I always appreciate the fact we didn't have the LA traffic. And that by the time I left there to come here to Hawaii, this last move, it was so bad that I just couldn't really appreciate it anymore living there. It seemed like it was becoming too much like LA in that sense, that you spent too much time in traffic. And it's a big part of your life, and people still do that everywhere. Commute to work, no matter where you are in the country. That's a big part of your time when you look at it. Oftentimes 20 hours or more a week of your total time spent is just commuting to and from work. In some places, it's a lot more like 40. So you're 40 hours at work plus your 40 hours commuting, right? And those commutes, though, if you're on public transportation, you also have it's a big cultural melting pot. But yeah, I never felt that in San Diego, and I thought that even though there's gangs and gang violence and all that kind of thing, and there's the white snobs and the parts in the ritzy parts of San Diego because they're definitely there. I never got that feeling. But living in Charleston, South Carolina, I thought it was pretty much the same way when I was stationed there. But when you got outside of Charleston and into more rural areas in the deep South, not just South Carolina, anywhere down there, there really was a lot of racism you'd see. So I can appreciate the grievances that people have, because they're real. They experienced them. It's just I feel kind of like we were talking about, Jim was saying earlier, about how are we wrong to have the humor we had because we just didn't appreciate the points that these people were making, about the grievances that were really there, because we lived in I hate to use that term, the white privilege, basically, right? Because we're all white guys here talking tonight. Or is it because it's the other way around also? They didn't have the privilege of growing up in a place or being in a spot where it didn't have that. I'm not saying San Diego didn't have that, but I think it's a good example of a place that's a lot better than many in that kind of diversity.
There was East San Diego, and there was stuff going on down there, and for me, I remember nothing racial, but mostly everybody was stereotyping what they called swabs. So anybody who was in the Navy was called a swab, and it was a derogatory term. You're a swab, aren't you? Aren't you, Epic? Aren't you a swab?
I actually took the number 7 bus to boot camp on the day after my birthday. Actually, it was my birthday, I think, when I joined the Navy. Yeah. So, so I'm a local guy from San Diego going to boot camp in San Diego. I actually hopped on the bus, public bus system, and went to the gates and went in that way. So it was funny because when people call you a swab or something like that, it's like, dude, I went to tell them all the schools I went to, right? Yeah, just judge you by your haircut.
I think the hardest insult that's happening right now is there's a bunch of this white privilege shit, and I think that's really what's offending a lot of white people, is because most white people are just working class people, man. They don't have anything. A lot of them are on food stamps. They don't have no white, there ain't no white, I mean, there's a lot of people work 14 hours a day, man, try to feed their families, and I saw this video the other day. Literally, it brought tears to my eyes, man, and I'm not afraid to say it. It was a couple kids, and they had a lemonade stand going, and it was a little black girl and her brother, and then there were some other little kids there, and these bikers were going down the street, a bunch of dudes on Harleys, and somebody pulled over, and another guy pulled over, and pretty soon about 50 or 60 people pulled over, and they were coming up to the lemonade stand. They're buying lemonade, and they were just doing it. They all got $1 in their pocket, man. They just saw a little kid on the side of the road, and they said, you know what, man, let's go over there. And that's what they do. And here's the stereotype of these big bikers on Harleys, these big racist bikers or whatever, and they're pulling over to help out a little lemonade stand. And to me, that's what America's all about, man. I've never seen this bullshit. I missed a call there. Call back. Let me see. I didn't see who it was. Call back. That's the main thing. The main thing is that in this moment in time is the whole moment that humanity is at a precipice where we could make a decision to go one way or the other. And as long as we're, battling each other, we're going nowhere. We're going there. We're nowhere fast. And as long as we stay separated, the people that we don't enjoy the plans that they have for us, those people, it looks like Snoopy's calling it. Those people are not going to be happy unless everything is all disjointed the way that it is, and we're going at each other because. If you want to find the information that'll get you killed or shut down, most of it has to do with trying to bring people together, not, the documents or whatever. Anyways, Snoopy, you're back. Do you got something to add to the conversation?
I do. I just, I travel, 30, 35 states regularly. And so I'm often in the deep South, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, and I'm interacting day to day with people of all different races, but definitely a lot of black people in that area. And let me just say that this whole notion of racial division doesn't exist other than in the media, because I interact with these people, and they're just the most gracious, polite, wonderful people. I mean, I go into like a soul food cafe in Louisiana, and nobody treats me with, anything other than great respect. And I reciprocate. And so this is all a construct of the media, and it just infuriates me. And it's not just in the South. I deal with people in Philadelphia or New Jersey or Pennsylvania, people, Latinos or blacks or whatever, people just working and, just doing stuff. And there's no racial division. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
nobody sees it. Nobody's recognizing that. This is all something that's a media thing.
The main thing about these conversations too is that we see things from where we are. We don't see things from other people. So, for example, you don't see, we say, well, hey, man, we're all white, and we're going, hey, man, there's no racism, man. Look at the racist. I don't know anybody who's racist, but we're not black. So we don't know what it's like to be black and to experience white people in the way that black people experience them. So in other words, we're two different tribes. We do things differently. So we can't all be the same. We all see things differently. Each tribe's going to see things differently than the other. But what we try to do is try to meld it all together. So I can't, although I can feel bad about what's happening to people in general, but like for the most part, when they're telling me a story on the news, does it matter what color the perpetrator was? In other words,
right.
When 12 people get shot in a church and all 12 of those people are black, okay, and the shooter is white, being outraged about the crime is where I should be at, not curious about what color the person was who did it. And then it just, it goes from there. That's really where the social engineering starts. In news stories reporting who it was and what color they were. It's like, oh, well, why are you telling me that? Well, because you need to know because he's on the loose, and you have to know that you got to look for someone of this color because they just did this thing. Okay, what does that do to the officers that are out there that got the description now? He's 6'1", 180 pounds, and he's black.
No, exactly. What really inspired me to call, I had a few things I wanted to cover, but the main thing is that the racial division that the media portrays, I don't see it on the ground. Okay. And I'm dealing with, some of the, deepest South regions, and everybody's great. Nobody thinks about race.
Well, yeah. And it's not
just, never anything.
And
hey, the other thing I wanted to mention, because you were talking about on the OJ trial. So like those two forensic coroner guys or medical examiners is Michael Baden and Henry Lee. So they're like the two that you always see those guys
Lee.
reference.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also said something which struck a nerve. You were mentioning Mr. Fung, who was an evidence technician in the OJ trial, and it was Barry Scheck, who was the lawyer on OJ's team. That was like his one-liner was like, "How's that, Mr. Fung?" And so that's what resonated with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Epic Journeyman. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he was a debunker, the DNA debunker, right? Because DNA was new.
Yeah,
he was a DNA debunker.
And Barry Scheck, whose Project Innocence took off from his notoriety in that OJ trial, and I think we have to give some kudos to that because even though that was a circus, Project Innocence has, I think, probably vindicated 100 and 200 some people through DNA evidence. So.
Bruce McDonald.
There's a number of people involved. Oh, is Bruce on board?
Yeah,
what's up, Bruce?
There's Bruce. How you doing, Bruce?
Hey, good. Hey, Dave. Hey, Epic. Jimmy.
Hey, what's going on?
And
hey,
Snoopy,
Bruce.
How you doing?
Fantastic. And we've ended up we were talking about the trial, but we've now we're talking about a little bit of racism and different types of ideas around this. Go ahead.
I've been listening for the whole show in the background. I had some work to do, so I'm well versed, Jimmy.
You got a mean hiss going. I think that's.
Let me call.
Yeah.
Let me call back in.
Yeah. Would you? 626-999-4761. Give us a call. We're interested in what you have to say tonight about this. Was he guilty? Was he innocent? Did it matter? Was it about the trial? Was it about the killing, or was it about race? Was it about how black people wanted some retribution for all the people that had been found guilty and were abused, and at the end of, because ultimately, this is a police situation for a lot of people. It's a system. It's a system thing. That's another thing. It's like white people all of a sudden are getting, finding out that the government's not their friend. Well, let me just say, black people have known that shit for a long time. Most black people probably conspiracy theorists from way back. And, and it's not a thing. It's not like it's just a known. You know what I mean? It's not like some weird shit you got to go read a book about. The government's not good because of what they do to you every day. Go ahead.
They know the Tuskegee Airmen. They were there, right?
Right.
They know some of the stuff, exactly.
Right. And what Margaret Sanger and the whole abortion clinics in black areas and this and that. The dangerous weeds and all that kind of shit, and tied directly to Bill Gates, right? Isn't Margaret Sanger, Bill Gates, and Bill Gates' dad, were they not eugenicists?
There's a whole eugenicist and technocratic thing about all this. Yeah, if you go back, much of the stuff we have been talking about for the last couple
it
years.
was the racial hygiene courts, if I can interject that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it was the racial hygiene. That's what Margaret Sanger and those people and Bill Gates's people that were involved in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Looks like we got another caller, 816. Where are you calling from? Appreciate you giving us a call. What do you think about what's going on tonight? What we're talking about?
Jimmy, hey, it's your boy. Who's your daddy?
Hey, what's up? Who's your daddy? What do you think about this, man? What do you think about now? First of all, let me ask you this.
OJ was guilty, man.
Guilty?
That's all I gotta say.
Okay,
no,
guilty. Okay, now
I'll mute up and you guys continue on because I really like where you're going with this.
All right, so guilty. Now, are you a person of color?
No, sir.
Okay, so guilty. All right, there you go. So a non-colorful person. Who's your dad? I think you're pretty colorful myself, man. But anyway. So, hey, thanks for calling. Who's your dad? We appreciate it, man. So, 626-999-4761, 626-999-4761. Bruce McDonald, have you joined us again? I don't know if he's back. He doesn't look like he's back. Dave.
I'll go check the perimeter and look for him. We'll be right back.
All right, Dave Scorpio.
Can I not?
Oh, there you go. There you go, Bruce.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, no. Every device I have is failing in this humidity up here.
Now I can hear you. Now it sounds like Bruce there. There you go.
Yeah, no, I've been listening to the show all night. I've just been doing some work at the computer, listening in the background. It's a fascinating show. So, look, clearly the agenda that Giuseppe and Dave are alluding to is real. But at the same time, I'm extremely hopeful. I don't think they're going to pull it off this time. And I've been severely chastised for my optimism. I don't know if I'm the only one who sees it, but I see this as this one is a grenade that's going to blow up in their face. It's the end of this kind of stuff, whoever these controllers are, right? Let me tell you about a little conversation I had 4 days ago with a friend of mine named Raph Jadion, a full-blooded Mohawk, and the nephew of one of the most prolific Native activists in North America in the last 50 years. He died about 8 years ago. A lot of people think he was murdered by the cops or murdered by somebody because he died 3 months after he tried to make a citizen's arrest of George Bush at a Calgary Oilmen's conference about a month after Bush left the president's office after his 2 terms. I mean, and this was a solid guy. He was about 62. he had done this. This is my buddy's uncle, but I met him through. I knew his uncle first, and he had been one of the instigators of the Attica prison riot in the 70s. Well, he was in there when he was 19. Did 20 years in Attica.
Wow.
So I'm talking to my buddy Rath, and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to bring in a little Canadian news, but it went international, so I'm sure you all know about it. Have you heard about these native bodies being found at the residential schools?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's huge news in Canada, and it comes under the Trudeau administration. Now, here's the question. These natives were taken from the reserves forcibly. In many instances, they were taken away by RCMP goon squads. Some of the reserves were so isolated, the RCMP had to go in on boats and steal the children. And so once they went into government care, they were all documented. Why are we surprised we're finding these bodies now? The government has files on all these bodies. Rath told me, he said, Bruce, every native knows, the elders used to tell us, don't eat apples. He's from this area of BC where they're finding all the bodies. And he's a native activist. He says, the elders used to tell us, don't eat from that apple tree. That's where the children are buried under there. So why are they going, and allegedly they accidentally, or kind of after years of procrastinating, they finally decided they were going to use radar or some form of technology that can penetrate the earth and see what's there, and that's how they found the bodies. And it fits right into this white man bad narrative, right? And I said, Rath, well, if everybody knew the native bodies are there, why are they blowing it up in the news now? And he went on to this 15-minute spiel that would slide right into this conversation you guys are having tonight. And he would be the most extreme in terms of chastising the government, and he's a full-blooded Mohawk. So what I'm trying to say with this little anecdote I'm telling is the entire perception is media generated. Nobody buys this bullshit. It's over. Their gig is up. They're not going to be able to do what they did in the 1600s in Britain to get the Bank of England. And if you go back and you study that century, it's an absolutely fascinating century. The King James Bible was written. They also had the Black Plague. London burned down and had to be refinanced to be built. It's almost a one-to-one match for what we're going through today. Okay? And they got away with it back then. They got the Bank of England and they set up this whole structure we're living under now. Not this time. Now, I'm not saying, as General Ripper said in Dr. Strangelove, I'm not saying we're not going to get our hair mussed. Like, people are going to die. People are going to die. I told everyone in my family not to get Michelle Pfeiffer, and they all did. All my nieces, all my nephews, my brother, my sister, my mother, my father, my son and I are the only ones who haven't dated Michelle Pfeiffer. That's a euphemism. Jimmy may have to give you guys a text on top.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, he's talking about the Moderna, JJ, Pfizer thing. Michelle Pfeiffer. Go ahead.
I'm not saying we're not going to get our hair mussed, and this is not over for a while. It's going to go on for another decade or so. We're in the most epic battle the human race has ever faced, because if they pass this milestone with the level of technology they have now, and the technology they have, which scares the shit out of us, is about 5% of what they really have. So you don't even want to imagine what's behind the curtain, right? Think of it this way. We got the internet in 1997. They were using it in World War II. And they've been growing exponentially. So the 50-year difference between technology in the military sector and the public sector is now more like 200 or 500 years ahead of us. They are. But I don't know, guys, and I don't mean to sound like a simpleton, because I have no rational way for explaining how I feel. I just, for lack of a better way of saying it, I feel in my heart they're not going to get away with it this time. Like the jig is up, man. There's just too many people. You go in the 1600s, nobody knew what was happening. When these countries, when the stormtroopers have gone into these countries and reshaped them to make them more malleable and submissive to the IMF, the World Bank, and the Bank of International Settlements, those countries don't know what's happening to them. Everybody knows what's happening now. We're in a classic emperor has no clothes moment. These guys, I can't even believe they can still get up in front of a microphone, the Joe Bidens and Justin Trudeau's of the world. By the way, Justin Trudeau is running the whole show. Okay, he in whatever infrastructure that really runs things behind the scenes, he's way higher up the totem pole than Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. Justin Trudeau is running North America now. He's telling Joe and Kamala what to do. I know that sounds really offensive to you Americans, but it is what it is. Okay,
well,
it is what it is.
Somebody's got to tell them what to do. They got no brains. But listen,
you don't want Trudeau doing that.
Yeah,
I'm telling you right now, he's an evil dude, man. Evil dude.
Well, those old conspiracy theories about the North American Union might not have been that far off, and the Amero might be just right around the corner. But Rodney King took a beating in 99, in 91? 92 was the trial. Another racial issue in Los Angeles. Another place where lines were drawn. Another place where the frustration, because there is no voice, came out on a truck driver who just, some white dude happened to get off the freeway at the wrong spot, man.
Reginald Denny, yeah.
Right. Right. So, but, you know, we've talked about this before. The same exact thing had happened with, now, if OJ was found guilty, would we have seen riots? Would we see riots? Because, listen, we just saw another trial with the same kind of a tone to it. In other words, if you don't find Chauvin guilty, well, this place is going to go up in flames, man. That's what the jury was saying on the Chauvin trial, right, for George Floyd.
So I have a comment on that too, okay?
Go ahead. Yeah, please do.
When the public gets interested in a trial and it gets telecast, like the O.J. Simpson trial is, the public is not a qualified viewer. And I'm not trying to rationalize what lawyers are doing because, you know, clearly the system is not working. But you got to understand, when a guy like Barry Scheck goes into, and basically he went in there, he enjoyed the hell out of himself, man. He absolutely was delighted to make a mockery out of the LAPD and the LA prosecutor's office.
Oh, yeah.
And why? Because he wanted to make a statement in public. He wanted to show people that the entire system is controlled by money. And OJ would get off because he had a lot of money. Okay? Now, what's the point in him doing that? That's him expressing his frustration after working in a system for years in which he's seen people without money go to jail, which is why he founded the Innocence Project, which, if you don't know, provides DNA services to death row convicts. And if they've been squawking and writing letters every year for 15 years saying, man, I'm not innocent, there's a point at which if you're innocent, you'll stop doing that. You'll just get exhausted. You don't have the energy because it's not coming from your heart. It's a lie. So I worked at AIDWIC for a couple of years. I wrote a nonfiction book on a guy that got convicted of murder in Canada. AIDWIC is the progenitor to the Innocence Project. It was begun out of the Hurricane Carter case in New Jersey. So all this stuff started in Canada, actually. Barry Scheck basically took the model of AIDWIC, called it the Innocence Project in the United States, and focused on DNA. But if they keep writing the letters after 3, 4, 5 years, it's like 100% they're innocent, because nobody who's innocent keeps doing that. So the Innocence Project picks up all these cases, and like pretty much every DNA test they do, guy's innocent, right? Now the police have the DNA. Why doesn't the prosecution, use the DNA? Because they just want to make the case, man. Classic example of this mentality is that twisted witch in the vice presidency right now, Kamala Harris. She's literally murdered people intentionally. She knows they're innocent. And all she had to do in a couple of instances was just, give a reprieve of 2 or 3 months to allow some DNA testing to be done. She says, no, the dude gets executed, right? So when we, the public, look in on the justice system, it's not really fair to the players. If your only opinion of Barry Scheck is what he did in the O.J. Simpson trial, it's the wrong opinion, because he's actually a really decent human being. And the justice system is screwed, man. It's screwed in Canada too. All right, I'll shut up.
Hey,
now.
can I interject something?
Yeah.
Oh,
Jimmy,
I was just going to say, as far as OJ goes, because we were taking a little bit of a tally, I'm going to vote guilty, but he should have been found not guilty. In other words, I think he did it, but I think that the jury verdict was a correct one, given the tainted evidence. With respect to Kamala Harris, I would just bring up the Plata decision. I think it was Plata versus California Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, which essentially the Supreme Court said, you got to let some of these people out because your prisons are so overcrowded. And she just said, basically, F you as Attorney General. You guys, in California can probably speak to that more than I can, but
What I'll tell
I
you
read up on that stuff a little bit.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. It's 626-999-4761, 626-999-4761. Give us a call. Guilty, innocent. Is this a black or white issue? Or is it an issue where what is this issue about? Is it about the crime? Is it about the man? Is it about his color? Is it about his class? Because, OJ was a black dude, but he's not your average black dude. Your average black dude's, just like everybody else. You're making $15-20 an hour just like anybody else at some job. OJ is part of that secret group, that part of that club that nobody's a part of.
Yeah.
And let me just say, George Carlin said it's a big club and you ain't in it. George Carlin was in the club, and don't think he wasn't. Mom's Jim resists the opportunity to play that. I used to listen to that on my paper route at 5 o'clock in the morning when I was 11 years old.
Best Dylan song in years, man. Seriously.
Yeah. I bumped into the Hurricane at a cash register at a gas station in the West End of Toronto. That's where he lives now.
Oh, yeah?
Nice guy. I said, "Are you Hurricane Carter?" He went on for 10 minutes. He just gives you this whole prepared speech. There's a lineup behind us waiting to pay for their gas, and the Hurricane's just going for 10 minutes.
That's fantastic, man. Yeah, it's a dirty shame, that we really don't have any control of the direction that we're going in. That we're just like we're on a train, and it's like a runaway train. Remember that movie, Runaway Train?
Thing is, just don't get angry, man. Like John Lennon said, don't get angry. They know how to handle you when you're angry, right? We got to stay calm, keep saying our message, and we got to say it to the minorities. The echo chamber of angry white dominated alternative media is only going so far, right? You got to have these conversations with people in real life, like the conversation I had with my Mohawk buddy Rath. I hadn't spoken to him for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I was amazed. I didn't know what to expect. I thought he might have a little bit of, it's about time, man. The white man's getting put in his place. 180 degrees. This is a setup. We're all being set up. He understood the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, how they weren't giving the land back to the Indigenous people. They were just going to choose their preferred straw man to screw over. And he completely down, and he's out there propagating that to the Native community, right? Mm-hmm. So don't give up hope, man. And I'm sure there's people doing that in the Black community. I'm sure there's people doing that in the Asian community. People see through this shit, man. They see through it. It's not going to work. These people will hang by the neck until dead.
Well, we can. One can hope. Go.
I was thinking when we talk about the OJ trial that one of the things that you can't miss is how much it affected culture and how much it seemed to be designed to do that. I mean, even from the jury selection in Marcia Clark, right? I mean, playing to people's personal biases and what they think they can manipulate, and whether got the right answer or the one they wanted didn't seem to be relevant to either side in some ways. Like it was all about the fame of the personal lawyer, the prosecutor, in some ways. And the thing that struck me is, I'm right at the beginning of the show, I said he's guilty. I believe that firmly, right? But he reminds me of what's going on right now in culture with Trump, right? It's exactly the same. Put Trump in the place of OJ, right? There's a lot of things he's guilty of, absolutely 100%. But how many people are going to defend him just because he is who he is? How many people are going to go after him just because of who he is?
Brilliant.
Right? The personal bias is playing to play. or come into play rather. And it's reflected in society on a bigger scale.
Remember Judge Ito?
Judge Ito, yeah, sure do.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like a caricature or whatever. So it just goes into what Epic Journeyman is saying. I mean, I just have to throw that out there.
The classic line from Judge Ito from the whole trial was, "Give the best to Lady Di." He was with all the people he was meeting, right? I mean, he was just like a deer in headlights, right? So, yeah, I remember exactly where I was when I saw that Bronco chase, man. I was in Taiwan. I was with some American buddies. It was morning because it's 24-hour difference, right, over there, or 12-hour difference in the Far East. And it's like 10 o'clock in the morning, and there's a TV up in the corner of the coffee shop, and it's just going on in the background in Chinese, right? And it's just, holy shit, is that O.J. Simpson? What the hell's going on here? And there's no internet back then, right? So it took us about 2 or 3 days to get the news. We had to go to somebody's house who had the satellite television so we could watch the BBC in English. Holy shit, OJ's been arrested for murder. It was completely surreal to go through that experience in Southeast Asia.
Good morning, guys.
Top of the morning.
Rock and reel.
What's going on?
We're talking about the manipulation of culture, OJ, and first we got to get the quiz going. Guilty or innocent, OJ Simpson?
Oh, come on. That's an easy one. Guilty.
Of course he's guilty. Right? Of course he is.
But you have to ask the second question is, should he have been found guilty? And my answer to that is no. He did it, but he should have been found not guilty. The prosecution case was tainted.
Well, their argument would be, which the case they won in the civil action was that they weren't allowed to bring evidence in. They couldn't bring up the phone call that OJ had with was it Van Adder? Is that his name, Officer Van Adder? It was talking down because that in a time when nobody had cell phones, they had wireless phones. Yeah.
But we're talking about a different evidentiary standard because the civil case is a preponderance of the evidence, and of course the criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt. And so on that higher standard, there's no way he should have been found guilty. On the civil case, yeah. And, as I said before, I think he did it. But
it makes you wonder.
I would have voted. I would have voted to acquit if I had been on that jury. I would have voted to acquit.
Yeah, well,
especially with the whole spectacle about the glove and all that stuff. I mean, come on. What? I mean, how can you even consider that? That's just craziness.
Well, you're right. He should have been found not guilty because the whole case was all out of whack, and
right.
I was actually saw a whole bunch of stuff recently on this on I don't know, it was Court TV or something, where they redid the whole trial. They played all the footage and everything, and the prosecution did an awful job.
His job,
right.
I mean, had they had it all together, it would have been an open and shut case. But I'm sure there were other people on the other side pulling strings for OJ because everybody loved the guy. So, maybe.
And he had some flamboyant attorneys that, of course, did, whatever they did. So, you had,
Johnny Cochran.
Barry Shack that we've talked about, and you had Johnny Cochran, and you had F. Lee Bailey. I mean, what didn't he defend the Midnight Stalker or something or whatever? I mean,
Night Stalker, yeah.
Night Stalker, yeah. Right. I mean, no, he had, a lot of great people on there, but I just, the essence of it was the prosecution sank their own case. He shouldn't have needed any of that to prevail in that, in my opinion.
And Dershowitz there too. I mean, just think about all the people.
Yeah, Dershowitz, right, exactly.
Yeah.
The two people that stick out in my mind from watching all that stuff on the case was the cop that took the stand and then I can't remember her name, but the blonde woman who gave, I think she was her sister or something that gave this long drawn out testimony about how OJ was so mean, and I think it was Nicole's sister that was
Nicole Simpson's sister. I forget her name.
But
yeah,
they were supposed to be the 2-star witnesses, and they just it was kind of funny to watch. Like they were out for blood, but they couldn't do anything. Like, but you don't understand. OJ is so horrible.
Right.
Well, the quote, her famous quote was that Nicole told her, "Well, he's going to kill me and he's going to get away with it." Well, why do you think that? She asked, right? To paraphrase, because he's O.J. Simpson. Yeah, that was her most famous thing. I recall that part of that.
Wasn't it like Denise Brown Richards or something like that?
I think that's right. I just saw her name come up a day or two ago. I didn't know we were
It's amazing how stuff like that comes back into your memory, because that's something that I like archive, and I wouldn't have to remember that for any other reason other than this conversation.
Yeah, well I remember Van Adder, like exactly. I just recalled that just now. I'm like, oh yeah, Van Adder, because we're talking about Furman.
Right.
Yeah, I forgot all about F. Lee Bailey. That guy, he's like a caricature, isn't he? He's like the drunk lawyer that comes in. Yeah, from the South or something, Yeah, but show on him,
So you don't see him coming because he's got like this whole Matlock sort of, kind of a good old boy or whatever. But he's like going to be he's going to totally nail it on the forensics or something where you're not going to be able to refute him. And that's like his whole shtick. Yeah, I've known a lot of lawyers like that. The lawyer, I'm in Wisconsin, the lawyer that defended Mark Chmura, if you remember from the Green Bay Packers whole. Yeah. Yes, that guy, his name is Boyle, Jerry Boyle. He had that whole thing going on too. Like he had this whole, kind of a good old boy, like he's all simple and he's got kind of a tattered suit, like a $300 suit, but he just nails it on, like on all the things. And of course he got an acquittal.
Yeah. Cause he wasn't actual rape, it was statutory rape. She was like 14, was she older? I think it was 14, wasn't it?
It was, Mark Chmura lived in this subdivision over in Milwaukee or whatever. And they had a party, just like a whole block party thing. And there was this little like group of high school kids called the Sexy Bitches, and somehow or another he wound up in the hot tub with one or more that hadn't reached the age of majority, and I don't know what else happened, but I saw a lot of the trial, and his lawyer did a good job. I mean, they didn't have a good case against him, so.
Yeah, I remember that trial. Same thing, like you say, it's one of those things that sticks with you, just because it's a novelty, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, we got about 15 minutes left. 626-999-4761, 626-999-4761. Give us a call. Snoopy's on the line. Bruce McDonald's on the line. Epic Journeyman's on the line. Rockin' Rio snuck in. I was in the other room and I heard Mambo Italiano playing, and I came back in because I thought my videos started playing by themselves, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like the what the fuck parrot in the other room. And you know what else I noticed too? Since I've been using the Aftermath app, what's up 202 standby? What I noticed about the Aftermath app over the past while since I've been checking the perimeter is that, there is no delay. But tonight there's like a super long delay between you guys being live and me being in the other room. It's almost like a minute or two. And I know that there's a long ass delay on YouTube big time. Sometimes even 5-6 minutes. It's not even seconds, it's minutes on YouTube. Because they're, I guess they.
Oh yeah, on Aftermath it's right on.
Yeah,
I hear that right away.
Yeah, but there's a delay tonight for some reason, so I'm not sure why. Maybe just my connection or something. I don't know. Anyways, my connection, your connection. 202. Thanks for calling. What do you got to say? First of all, guilty or not guilty on the O.J. Simpson trial? How did you feel about it?
Well, I think he's definitely guilty.
Okay.
Hands down. But just the way that they went about it, same thing, that he should have gotten off from what it was, just because he had the full weight of the system coming at him, and they just weren't playing fair. And I think that is the biggest problem.
So let me see if I can let me see if I understand you. So what you're saying is you're with Snoopy. In other words, you think OJ was guilty, but you feel as though the jury did the right thing because of the way that the case was handled, the evidence was handled. He just, there wasn't, they presented a case that created reasonable doubt, which is all you need, right? So what do you think? Do you think the jury did the right thing because of how the case was handled, or do you think they did the right thing because just in general the system was right, OJ was guilty?
Well, I think I always come down on it because I'm not a statist, so I don't believe in organized religion and organized crime that way. That when you've got, because we're all pawns in the system from these the elite, the alleged elite that run this planet. They're just a bunch of multi-generational serial killer families that somehow got into power, and then they subjugate us, and then we wind up having to play in their rigged casinos, which is their court system. So
whoever's washing their dishes, stop it, man, or get off the line. Somebody making a bunch of noise. Go ahead.
I don't think it's coming from my end.
No, it's not coming from
you. No, it's pretty quiet here.
No, that was me. I'm muting back up.
How dare you?
Yes.
I find it funny too, because here in northern Idaho, where I live, Mark Furman lives here. So. Oh,
that's right. Now, does he have that radio show now? Because I know he was doing talk radio for a bit. He was kind of like a red talker. He was sort of a conservative talker. Is he still doing that?
I'm not sure if he is. I just run into some of the older people that live here in town when I go and have pints at the my local haunt here. They're like, oh yeah, he's a good guy, and I mean I'm sure he is. I haven't run into him yet, but I think that, I mean, from last I heard, and this was a little while back, I mean, he was still doing the show, but I'm not sure if he is or not.
Well, there are some big time cliques and gangs within some of these giant police forces, and even within the government. So, I mean,
most of them are up here. This area is heavily inundated with LAPD retirees, and also a lot of military and vets and retired. I mean, I'm not a retired vet, but I am a vet and a veteran of U.S. intelligence and all that scam that was going on during the Cold War. But even during that time, I could see the system rigging itself against, just the hoi polloi, the average person, these serfs that we all are compared to them. And I think that the overarching theme is that this is a conquer and divide, and no matter it doesn't matter what topic that comes up at this point here in 2021, there's like a 50-50 divide, that it's us against them, no matter what it is.
That's right.
Red, blue, it's the Super Bowl, it's my dad's dick is better than your dad's dick, and it's just this constant thing. And these scared wealthy elite that it seems like they're racing to a finish. It's like they seem to be in a hurry to just kind of throw everything at the table right now, because things are spinning out of control, and they're racing against time for something, and that's why we're being hit with all this shit at the same time. And it's
well, I've been saying it for
they're desperate for us to fight against each other. This everything that's going on, and for this depopulation that they want to go on, they want us at each other's throats so that they don't have to, because they don't want to have to come out of the castles and try to do it themselves, because there's no way that they can, because they're just so weak outside of their power structure and the money that they have wielding against us.
Well, something I've been saying for the last couple of days, and I've been wondering, because I've been thinking about this, I've been wondering, what is it right now that would make this global 1% stop beating and treating people the way they were and just go ahead and relinquish control to let everybody who's been beaten just take the system down? Why are they willing to allow everybody to take the system down now? Why are they stopping the beatings? Why are they stopping the arrests in the neighborhoods? Why are they stopping what they've been doing all of a sudden? It doesn't make any sense to me. Just like this new thing that's going around that's been signed by Australia and Bruce, Canada, where they're going to turn everything back over to the natives. I mean, this is a thing in the UN. So the thing is like, for all of a sudden, all these 1%ers are willing to just give it up, relinquish it, give it to just, forget it. Let them have it at each other. Let's get out of here. I mean, what are they? Were they floating on a floating city?
Can I ask 202 a question?
Yes.
Matt, can you tell us who you work for? You mentioned intelligence.
Who I was in Air Force intelligence during the Cold War in a joint intelligence facility, which today would be classified as like a fusion center. So my clients in the building were CIA, NSA, DIA, NPIC, you name the alphabet, and every 4 branch of military intel.
Yeah, 202 calls in on a regular basis. Go ahead, Bruce.
You know Rick Doty?
Rick Doty, AFO. Yeah, I can't even get it straight. I'm drinking some high alcohol content beer, so sorry.
Hey, it's late. It's
almost kind of dry over here, man.
Did you say?
I'd love to have.
Did you say Richard Doty?
Yeah, he was the head of that Air Force Intelligence Division that was tasked with obfuscating the UFO phenomenon. Like, they would deliberately go to like contact in the desert and stuff like that, pretending to be participants and spread disinformation. So, I mean, I'd love to pick your brain, but you're probably under an NDA, and we're on the radio. We're on the live radio now. But I'd love
give
to
him your email address. Give him and everybody else your email address that you give out to people get in touch with you.
SeenThatTinker@gmail.com, and just split it into 3 words. Seen that tinker. Like, have you seen that tinker? And the tinker is the guy that would drag the cart, ring the bell to sharpen knives. SeenThatTinker@gmail.com. It's from a Cormac McCarthy novel.
There you go. So now 202, you can contact Bruce. And I'd also like to have you on sometime too. So mine's jimmygene27@gmail.com. I also have a Patreon. If you enjoy the show, you want to support it, I would appreciate it. Go over to Patreon, Into the Microcosm, become a supporter. We can really use some dough. If you got it, we'd appreciate it. We bust our ass. We do it for free. We don't sell ads. We don't do any of that stuff. We just try to bring you the best show we can bring you every single night of the week. And we're going to keep doing it, and we don't get paid, but we'd appreciate a few bucks if you got it, man. So Patreon.
Jimmy, let me underscore that, if you will, because free speech is not free. And so we've got to support shows like Into the Microcosm, which is why I signed up for Patreon.
I know. Thank you, Snoopy.
Everybody should just, throw something.
Yeah, we really appreciate
whatever you can afford. If everybody does $5, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, that would be
I threw
amazing.
what I could afford.
I appreciate everything. And even if you don't have anything to give, and I appreciate the support or sharing the show or telling other people about it if you enjoy it. We really...
Well, what's cool about your show, I got to say, is that it's a little bit more of an open forum think tank, and you just got so many different subjects, and people just don't realize that this free form and how good it is over the amount of time that you have allotted to get this stuff out there, how much information you can actually get out there. And it's better when you got a bunch of intelligent people from different backgrounds that can hash things out and apply some critical thinking.
I agree.
To get to something, to a point. And the only way that you can get past what these people are doing against us is to sit there and flesh this stuff out and figure out
we need our
how to
own
work around things.
Yeah, we need our own think tanks, and that's the idea behind the show. It's like, this is look, there's pop culture, there's stuff, there's great things we can look at and have fun with, but the bottom line is, it's a think tank, and these are subjects, and we're getting to the bottom of some stuff. We're asking questions. Sometimes the questions we ask on this show, I'm going to sleep, I'm still asking myself the same question. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out why all of a sudden the people that have been running and controlling everything have all of a sudden have decided they're just going to give it up, man. And I'm starting to wonder if there really is a giant planet about to come in and wipe us off the face of the earth. Because that's
it makes me think that they're worried the landlords are coming back. They've been given free reign. They went away like it was risky business.
I know.
And they've been around, and next thing you know, they're coming home early, and they're like, oh shit, we got to get this house back in order, and we got to depopulate this thing, get it down to 500 million like the guidestones say, and look, we've been doing fine. And
you gave me a clue there. I'm sorry, get real quick. You said about northern Idaho. It reminded me with Furman going there. There's something really significant about that. I never made the connection until now. Talking about a think tank, is that when Furman fled to Idaho, you have to call it fled. He retired to Idaho right after the trial. They made a big deal about the whole thing. He was going to go there, and that there's this big white supremacist stronghold. This is in 1995. They're talking about that before he even goes there. That's going to be the area, where all these people are going to, and that's also the year that the bombing happened, Oklahoma City bombing, and they tied it all into the militia movement, of all things.
They did. They did.
They sure did, right? And it's all coming back now, right?
And that was the
weird?
first.
Yeah,
that was the first round. That was the first round of the Patriot Act too. The first round of the Patriot Act.
And a lot of that was in the aftermath of Ruby Ridge, too.
That's right.
So, because that was 1992, I believe, in Idaho.
And what is the number one threat to America right now based on what has just happened in the last 4 years?
Domestic terrorism.
The white Christian gun owners are the enemy of the state, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you tomorrow night. It's in the microcosm. Epic Journeyman, Bruce McDonald, 202, and Way Cool Snoopy.
Way Cool Snoopy.
All right, everybody.
All right, Jimmy.
Yeah. Hey, we'll see you tomorrow night, Friday Night Live, right here.
You bet.
All right.
All right, bye.
You don't have to go home. You just can't stay here. Get a room. See you later.
Have a good one.
We're out of there. Do you guys want to hang around for a few minutes? Because if you do, that's cool, but I got to go outside and have me a nice cigarette and just relax for a minute. So, you guys want to hang around or no?
Chat with them. Sure, Uncle Live on YouTube. Why not?
Yeah, we're
Your
live.
epic-
There's a bunch of people over there too. There's like 30 people over there. So, yeah, hang on. 816 is calling in. Hold on.
And give out these email contacts again.
Yeah, I will. Hang on. 816. You just joined in. We're gonna hang out for a little bit of an after party here. But what we're gonna do is I need to take a quick break, and so if you guys want to hang out, I'll leave this YouTube open. You guys can stay here, and I'll go outside because I got my iPad charging. I can get on the call outside.
Right on.
All right.
Yeah. Let's talk about a subject that's thought of in the chat here that I think is pretty good. 1995 would have been a good year, wouldn't it, to have stopped technology, basically, to have a 40-year moratorium until society caught up with our technology, because it's almost like that does mark the division point where it escalated so fast that the laws didn't catch up, the people didn't catch up, our consciousness didn't catch up. It's just all of a sudden that we're way behind the 8 ball in terms of not having anything to protect the people from the technology we created.
Yeah. When I look at the world epic, I see it in various stages of imbalance. And I would say that India is inwardly imbalanced. They're too inward looking. And I say that because I've been there, and you can't avoid stepping in human feces everywhere you walk, even in the nicest cities. I'd say the West has become too externally imbalanced. We've lost our internal life. And somewhere amongst all the cultures in the world, there's a perfect culture. I'm in favor of globalization, and I know that's a dirty thing to say on alternative radio, but I just think it's bad if it's banker-led. You know, when the human race actually comes together and forms a monoculture, it's going to be unbelievable because we all have stuff to teach each other. And I don't know who said it on the call earlier. I think it was 202, the former intelligence officer, but the name of the game is divide and conquer now, and it's on steroids. In every way. And even if you're ethnically and culturally the same, they're going to divide you over silly little religious things, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Muslim. I mean, it's divide and conquer. And there's a lot of tension in the world now. And as the tension rises and people can't cope, they can no longer interpret reality. They hold on to their dogma like a little piece of driftwood in the ocean after their boat sank. And yeah, go ahead, Rio. Sorry.
Well, isn't this like the whole plan of the whole New World Order thing, though, right? If we're going to have a one world government and a one world leader, what they have to do is let us completely destroy each other from inside, and then present, you know, this leader that's supposed to come in, the Antichrist figure, if you will, as the guy who's going to save everybody and reunite the world, right? So that they're, in order for somebody to come in to be that savior, to reunite the world and get everybody on the same page, everything has to be a complete disaster. So what a better way to do it? Just let everybody destroy themselves to the point where they have to say, hey, look, you guys couldn't handle this. You're just all going nuts. And now we have to step in and take control.
Yeah, that's might be what they want to do. I have to be honest, though. I see the Abrahamic scriptures as a form of mind control, all of them. The only exception may be being Christ, but I've never met anyone who can really live up to what he says in those Gospels. And they, but the whole thing is a mind control system. And not only that, it's a form of disclosure. It's their plan they're putting out, you know. So I've always had problems with the Abrahamic scriptures. I don't really talk about it that much because it's really offensive to believers, and I don't want to offend anybody. But, you know, if first of all, it's a named God, right? The moment you're dealing with a religion that has a named God, you're not dealing with anything that's leading back to whatever created this universe. Because the only reason you name something is to individuate it. When we as human beings look at the sun, we call it the sun. We put the article the in front of it because it's a proper noun. It has no name. And there's only one of them, so it's the sun. When astronomers talk about the sun, they call it Betelgeuse, right? So you only name something to individuate it among things that are like it. So if you say Hashem or Yahweh or Allah to me, I just think, okay, you're lost. You're in the program, right? And I'm not saying that there isn't any consciousness feedback there that you can't interpret as multidimensional. There is. anytime you concentrate on yourself, you're going to have multidimensional experience. The problem people make is they map it back to the scripture. They don't say, I own this experience. Like a native shaman 3,000 years ago in North America, they're mapping it back to a book. The most advanced spiritual cultures in the world don't have any scripture. Esoteric Buddhism, Ayurvedic yoga, it's passed from teacher to student. And in the West, we're just locked into this book. And, you know, if people don't realize this, Bruce, pretty quick, they're going to go for each other's jugular, you know? I used to be part of a radio station that's pretty much circled into a Christian jihad now. It's as offensive as anything you saw coming out of the Islamic world 20 years ago.
It is. I totally think of Team America, right? Jihad. Right.
Well, I see it as whether you take the scriptural context of it or completely secularize it, right? It's the plan that they have, and it's the game that's being played, and you know, the design of it is that there are a bunch of people, you know, we refer to them as the elites or the Illuminati or however you want to name them or whatever you want to call them, that really want to be just a bunch of overlords. And if it is like an antichrist figure that comes out of the Bible, or it's just, you know, it's, you know, just the Rothschild family that really just wants to grip their control on everything, there's this group of people that are together, and their plan is to completely destroy the culture and let us destroy each other from within and destroy ourselves so that they can just put their fist down and absolutely take over and take control. And, you know, that's the power greed that they've always had. They're looking to tighten that grip. And what a better way to do it than just let us destroy ourselves so that they can come in and say, well, you guys can't handle it, so you obviously need us to control you.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to say that you know, growing up as a kid, growing up in Florida, I went to, no matter where we got transferred, we were always, my mom said, oh, this is the biggest church in town, so we're going to go try this religion. So I literally tried everything a la carte growing up, and of course the most fun I ever had as a 10-year-old kid was going with some neighbors out into the woods to this Black Baptist church where I was this only little white kid sitting in the back, and everybody was just singing, clapping hands. It was like a big party, and to me, I was like, this seems right because these people are having a lot of fun. It's not scaremongering. But for the most part, after a while, I just realized, to me, it just seemed like that it seems like a contrived form of mind control. And, you know, I don't want to offend people who are faithful, but at the same time, most religions to me come across as the equivalent of Common Core. It's most of it doesn't make sense. They change things depending on who's in power at the time. The Bible's been written so many times. I just remember looking at a list of how many times it had been written over the ages and who wrote it, what books they included, which ones they took out, how this person that wrote it this time was chastised and wound up being strung up, quartered, or burnt at the stake, and then 100 years later going, oh, he was right, and went after this thing. This idea, I mean, I think that there is a creator of some aspect out there that did this whole thing, but we're just a bunch of ants, and there's just no way that we can comprehend something like that, except for some of the shamans and some of these ancient peoples from these old world tribes that took DMT and did other things to be able to manifest a different reality and kind of channel in and kind of see what's out there and where we're going and what might be out there. But it just seems kind of absurd that who we are at this point, that we do have to give this being a name, a personification, whether it's male, female, depending on whatever it is. It could just be a great computer out there in this construct in the middle, just running this whole program that's going on. But it's there. We're dealing with a group of people who have been running this planet for the longest time. They have the secret knowledge, the secret texts, the secret societies, and they've kept all this information from us. And they're ahead, just like what I thought about when I worked in intelligence. The technology that I was using in the 80s in the Cold War was so far ahead of what's coming about now at this time. I was like, oh wow, yeah, I remember when I was using that part of the internet back in the 80s, and how it had to manifest so slow in the part in the 90s when it came out to the rest of the regular world. But there were just things that we did, and I was like, yeah, we're just so far ahead of what's actually going on that these people that have been running the planet, and to me, they're still just multi-generational serial killer families, and they know something, and since they have the information, they're trying to manipulate it to the way that they want to see the outcome benefit them, definitely not us, because they've just been using us all along. And I think you said that. I think you were bringing up the stuff about Trudeau. He definitely runs a lot more than this shit show that we've got going on here. This embarrassment here in the U.S. But he definitely, to me, with all the information that is out there, seems like he is Fidel Castro's bastard son, and it would kind of make sense why he is in power up there, especially since his mother was so friendly with Fidel and traveled around with him. And it would make sense having him in the power structure up there. We've got Fidel's bastard child running Canada right now, and we had Fidel in his usefulness down in Cuba during that time for the stuff that went on. But we are definitely being played by something, and it seems like religion, for the most part, is a construct, is a mind control mechanism, because it seems so simple and easy that you don't need a book with all these stories in it that have been plagiarized from older texts and older thought systems like the Akkadians, the Babylonians, the Sumerians. There's just so many other older texts where they got all this information from, and it's just so easy to just be kind to somebody. I mean, what do you really need a book and a religion to just be kind to your neighbor and to your friends?
No.
Do unto others as
no one should have to. No one should have to. No one should have to steal. No one should have to steal food. Okay, I mean, stealing, and everything about it was started because there was lack. Because at the time when people learned how to steal, take something that wasn't theirs to feed their family, to take the work of another person and take it away. That concept, was learned because there was people that had nothing, and they were starving, and some other people had more than they needed. And so the thing is that if someone's hungry in this modern world, they could walk up and get something to eat, and we could eliminate that. But I wanted to jump in before I forget, because it's late. But when I was outside having a smoke, I came to the realization that what we're talking about tonight is a super big misunderstanding by the white community presented by this trial, because it's the same misunderstanding that white people had about the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter didn't mean they didn't give a shit about anybody else's lives. They were just protesting about black lives. And just like people say, OJ, he's guilty. White people straight down the line, every single white person I talk to says guilty. Right? Here's the thing, and here's the big misunderstanding. the whole thing from the black community standpoint had nothing to do with the actual crime and everything to do with the police railroading the black guy. It didn't matter if he was guilty of the crime. What mattered was they didn't present a case in a proper manner. And this was another time when they were protesting against the police with that. They're saying, hey, man, you know, just like when this whole Black Lives Matter thing was happening, and I brought up the demonstration by the Black Panthers in California when they went up to see Reagan up at the state capitol, and this was an open carry state, and you had people all pissed off because the black people are up there with their guns or whatever, and all of a sudden they passed a law in California, hey, no, you can't carry your own gun. You know what I mean? So the thing is here's another case where the Black Panthers were fighting for the same shit that we're fighting for. They said, you know what? Here's the thing, too. They were saying, look, you can't come into our community and police it correctly. We'll police our own community. We'll police our own community. We'll got our own guns. We'll police our own community. And that, you know, the system had a problem with that. So I think the big thing is the cultural disengagement between the races. In other words, like I said earlier, black folks think about things differently than white folks do. Everybody solves problems differently based on what their situation is, you know. So there's no, if we have look, two black dudes pissed off or whatever, yelling at each other, they're not even going to hit each other, man. That's just how they relate. But if you took that same black dude and put him next to a white dude and had him do the same thing he does in his own community, that black dude would be pissing his pants and running away because he thought he was about to get smacked in the head. But if he lived in the hood, he would know that that dude wasn't going to do shit. He was just yelling at him or whatever, and then it was going to be over. So the thing is, there's that distinct cultural difference right there that makes it almost impossible for anything to happen in any kind of a real manner. Because everybody isn't going to be gray like everybody wants them to. Everybody's going to be different, and all of us, all our tribes do things differently. We all do. So I don't know, man. It's a trippy situation. But what do you guys think about that? Do you think it's the same misunderstanding down the line?
Dead on, man. Dead on. I've been all over this world, lived in different kinds of racial communities. So I'm probably in the most exotic I've ever lived in now. I've been relatively not the very bottom rung of society most of my life, but maybe one rung above that, like bachelor apartments. Through university, I lived in welfare hotels. Seriously, I did. And I'm telling you, man, people are just the way they are. And so much of this is exactly what you said, Jimmy. It's just misunderstanding and fear and manipulation by the media. You know, going back to the religious topic, I was reminded of Russ Cole's line in True Detective Season 1 when they're at the tent church, and he said, brilliant line, man, I'll remember it for the rest of my life. Tip my hat off to the fellow who wrote that, Nick Palazzo, I think his name was. But if you need a code of conduct written down to tell you to be good with a reward and punishment system built in, you're a piece of shit to begin with. Like, seriously. Like, you know, I mean, the Lao Tzu said in the Tao Te Ching, and I'm paraphrasing here, you can gauge the corruption of society by the number of laws in it. So he's saying that human beings are left to their own devices if they're brought up in a healthy, happy environment, you know, a village environment or something. You're not going to need that much law. But you know, when you have a whole bunch of law, what does that tell you about the people? Right away, we're accepting the idea that we're bad because we need so many statutes and acts to govern us. And really, so much of our law has proliferated to protect property, and particularly the property of banks, which is money on loan, which is why you won't get a house mortgage unless you buy homeowners insurance to cover the bank's money, right? Same thing with a new car, same thing with everything.
Right. The whole purpose of the media is to show you things that you can't have. So the thing is like, if I'm living in America and I'm in a low income situation, regardless of what color I am, when I see TV, when I see what's on, when I see all these people, they all got stuff that I don't have. So I got to aspire to have it. And if I can't have it by having a job that pays me enough money to be able to afford to have nice things, then what am I going to do? I'm going to steal to get them because I want to have the clout, the social clout that comes along with wearing the costume and playing the role. Whereas you go and look at other people in other countries where they don't have TVs, showing them there's something other than what they got, they're happy. They're happy because they're not they're not wanting to get on the treadmill for the rest of their life to have some item, some shiny item. And that's the thing, is that Western culture is based on nothing but marketing and sales. But
well, it's materialism at its finest, right?
Right. Down
and
to a science
greed. It's the greed that drives people, right? And even there again, that whole concept, the love of money, right, is at the root of all evil. It's the greed. It's the desire to be better than the other guy, and it's materialism. Well, why do you get to drive a Rolls Royce when I'm driving a Ford? Well,
really, at the root of that, though, Rio, is human sexuality, and particularly male sexuality, right? The best hunter would get the best woman 8,000 years ago, right?
Yeah. Whoever brought home the biggest buffalo, right? Or, the tallest, strongest, the big beefcake guy would be the one who got the women because he would be a better hunter. He would be a better provider.
Yeah. So our chastity, monogamy, and sexual and family discipline has eroded in direct proportion to the wealth and growth of the middle class in North American society. Right? That should be plain. Go ahead.
I was going to say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was going to say, but look how they're literally changing that the past couple of years with the transhumanist movement, which is behind most of the stuff, is trying to eviscerate that alpha male in that regard, as far as human nature is concerned, about providing for the family. That they're literally, as far as sex is concerned, they're even telling you that that biological males and females don't exist in that right format anymore, that anybody can procreate and create children. And now they're pushing us towards this under the Great Reset, that you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So they're trying to get us away from this Western mindset, that what we came about after World War II, with even women in the factory, and how that they were such a major force in helping that part of the war, getting into the 50s, to where you had mom having to come back home and work in the home. You have the one male provider going to work, to where you could actually afford things. Now with BlackRock and how the Federal Reserve is propping them up to buy up entire communities, so that there is no home ownership anymore, which is something that created wealth for the middle class, something that they could grow and pass on to their family. That was the one easy way that people, small business owners and people that owned homes, could actually pass something on.
And how they got away from it? I can tell you how it got me thinking about we're talking about materialism, consumerism, and the marketing required to get people to do things they don't really want to do, right? And how the most basic things, like, am I a man or a woman? Am I actually a woman in a man's body? What am I exactly? I mean, the most basic things. You know what it is? Every good campaign needs a good slogan. It's question everything. Question everything is the 21st century slogan that's putting us into this, call it a new world order, whatever you want to call it. Because if you take everything away and question everything, then nothing's real. And if nothing's real, you are destroying the world. You're making order out of chaos. You're taking the world in this totally deconstructing it to rebuild it in the image you want. And that's how bad it is. When people are questioning the most basic things, and the things we held to be true in the past don't apply anymore. And you can't even do them what used to work for your family and parents in the past, like we talked about the single family income and earner and the idea of owning a home, and that goes away. Well, how do we get there? It's because we questioned everything.
Well, it's also too, and we've talked about this on shows a lot before, right? We had these 10-year plans that keep going on. We have the 50s where they broke down the family unit a little bit. Then we had the 60s, which brought about the cultural revolution and the sexual revolution. Then we had the 70s, which was all about anti-government. Then we had the 80s, the decade of decadence, right? They were boosting up the money, boosting up the greed, boosting up the tension between the classes. Then we had the 90s, right? Everybody was, we went from the decadence to the heroin and depression. Now you're depressed because you don't have the same things that all those guys that made the money in the 80s have. Then you come into the 2000s, right? And it keeps building and building. So each one of these 10-year periods, these cultural revolutions are 10-year plans to destroy another segment of the society until they've got it all completely broken down and can come in. Now we're in the chaos society, right? Everybody's got to fight each other. And we can't like each other. We can't agree with each other. We can't even figure out if we're a boy or a girl. So, I mean, just confuse the crap out of everybody until they go nuts.
And when you start to forget is when they roll in the nostalgia. It's what I was talking about earlier. Remember, you notice how they always roll this nostalgia in? It's always a decade out. It's a decade back. They bring it back. Watch the 90s are going to come back, right? The 90s are about to come back, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. We were talking about this off air, Jimmy. This is a secret of Tarantino. I enjoy his films, but they're like Chinese food. There's nothing lasting. No Country for Old Men, True Detective Season 1 will stay with me for the rest of my life, right? What is Quentin Tarantino? He's Andy Warhol's soup cans, his Campbell soup cans in cinema. That's all he is. He plays with the sort of mnemonic structure of these decades. He's a master at it to provoke emotions and bring things together. I get that. Yeah, that's just like when I grew up the 70s. Just go back to that Christopher Walken scene with the gold watch and Pulp Fiction. Mm-hmm. Look at the TV. That's exactly how we all grew up, everyone on this call, if you're between 45 and 65, right? And that's what he's doing.
Well, the other thing he does, he lifts from all the stuff that was going on back then that he was watching. So you look back at all those old TV shows and stuff that were in reruns. You look at those, the ones that ran over and over again. He lifts little plots and storylines out of there. He lifts dialogue out of there. He rearranges it. But that's what he does. Is he makes you were saying he has this ability. His ability is to make a collage out of existing shit and then just put his own tone on it. Go ahead.
This is the nonsense of postmodernism, right? He's the cinematic equivalent of one of these DJs that become internationally famous, and all they do is cut songs together with 2 or 3 vinyl turntables going at a big rave in some island, right? Yeah. And that's all he's doing. And look, the point I'm trying to make here is, look, we've lost beauty. And beauty, no matter what religion or spiritual path or atheist or agnosticism you come from, beauty is a lighthouse for all human beings. It centers us. It reminds us of our real beauty. I can't think of an example, coincidentally, off the top of my head, but just think of the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, the most beautiful movie, the most beautiful book the novel you read that stays with you your whole life. It might be a Mark Twain. It might be J.D. Salinger. Beauty is important. They took that out quick. And so anybody on this call read Capital by Thomas Piketty? Because this is a big book in the background governing the economics and the reset. And it's more evidence that all this stuff is sort of staged and planned. It came out in 2017. It's one of the best-selling books of the last 20 years. It's a nonfiction book on economics. Who thought that would be a bestseller? Written by a French dude. And it's all about the danger of the concentration of wealth going into the limited number of families we have now. And it's the really the intellectual bedrock for the kind of legislation or suggestion of legislation we're seeing now. When Bernie Sanders says the baby boomers have 67 trillion in their 401ks, let's rate it to fund education. He's coming right out of Piketty, right? That's coming right out of that book. So everything is staged. Nothing is real. It's, I'm preaching to the choir, I realize, on this show. You guys have tread this ground much better than I am. But what we're trying to do is get it out to the listener, right? Just keep repeating it so people understand, and this is just the layer of illusion under the illusion of the hologram, the Maya that the Buddhists talk about. There's that level of illusion as well, but we're inside an illusion, inside an illusion, inside an illusion now. And the one we're living in now, cognitively anyways, the trees are still real, the rivers are still real, but the digital reality we're living in now, the little box they've put us into now, is completely man-made. It's an ideological construct with no reality. And now they're just ramping up the tension, and it's exploding. And it's like a spiritual litmus test for the human race. And I've seen so many people go crazy in the last 2 years, it isn't funny. I'm constantly, dropping people from Skype, cleaning my Facebook, get into an argument with somebody, they're gone because they can't let go of some dogma they're holding on to.
Well, think about where we are as a society right now, sort of like what you're pointing out, that technologically, like Star Trek and everything else, we've got all this stuff. We've got these black monoliths that we keep in our pockets, these fondle slabs that we run around, these massive computers that can access anything, just like what I'm talking about on this damn phone right now. Gives me access to all of you guys right now around the world, real time. One of the most powerful computers that we've ever had as a layperson to use. But it's literally dumbed us down to the point to where we're dependent on so much. I mean, and of course, we're all of the age too that, when we were younger as kids, outside playing like we're supposed to, we had one phone in the house, and it had like a 30-foot long spiral cord on it. And, if somebody called the house and we didn't have a answering machine, if they didn't get you, they would call back. You didn't have to run around and feel so attached to one of these kind of devices. But you look back at these ancient societies, the Mayan, the Aztecs, even go back even further, 30,000 years, to these cavemen who were painting in the caves in France, Spain, and other places around the world, who were literally painting these beautiful pictographs across the cave walls. And modern science is like, oh yeah, these idiots were good enough to where they could use these pigments and create their hunting rituals. Well, no, these guys were literally putting up on the wall our celestial makeup, what we see out here in the universe as we can see it from planet Earth at this time, and back from their time period when they were drawing a bull doing something. It turns out that this is Taurus, and it's the right star constellation, and they have the right amount of stars in the makeup of what they were drawing. These groups of people were painting from the night sky and these cave walls our solar system as it could be seen from the planet. And of course, this will offend the flat earthers, but they were able to picture on these walls things that were seen in the southern hemisphere that somehow, allegedly, modern science says they could not travel and see these kind of things from that vantage point. So they could see everything all the way around the planet, put it up into the caves, draw this stuff, have a correct depiction of what our solar system and our night sky look like. And at this point, you come up to the most average person, they have no idea what they're looking at in the sky. I mean, I go out and look at it every night because I find it interesting and trying to figure out what it is that I'm looking at. But the average person would not know how, when the power goes out, what is in the sky. You've got all these shaman, all these ancient peoples who are able to, thousands, tens, 20, 30,000 years ago, can figure out, go out into the woods, pick out a bunch of different plants, somehow mix them up in the right ingredients, and create a concoction that will either let them talk to their journeyman through some type of hallucinogen, or they will create a medicine, or they will create some kind of magical food source. They were so connected to the planet and to the stuff that was around them without having any of this other stuff. We think that we're at the pinnacle of society, but we are just so dependent on this little bit of technology that we have. And as soon as the power goes out, just like they predicted, no power here in the United States within a year, 90% of the population is going to be gone. They have no idea how to survive. And we just think that we're at this pinnacle, and we're not. We just cannot get back to the basics and realize what it is that we actually need and how to connect with nature and see what's actually going on.
Well, based on...
I'm trying to... Yeah, go ahead.
Based on what you're saying, I'm asking you guys, if we all sat out in our backyards every single night for the entire time that we're alive, do you think it would be possible for any single one of us to sit here and map out how those stars move, where they're going to be, what sign they are, what kind of effect they have on the human race or a human being? This knowledge is clearly did not come from some person, but we're just given a name that all the universal knowledge that's out there that's been passed down lip to ear, it gets passed out and they put a name on it, like Shakespeare or Columbus or Newton or Pythagoras. Go ahead.
I don't know about.
What do you think about that, Jim? Go ahead. What do you think? Because I'm, go ahead. Because I mean, I think about this kind of shit. Go ahead.
I want to pick up on what 202 said. So I agree completely. So when you look into that, like how the natives learned ayahuasca and all the other sacred medicines, there was an ethnobotanist from Canada named Wade Davis, who was National Geographic's explorer in residence for over a decade. He's a bit of a celebrity in Canada, but you guys might know him from a book that got made into a movie about voodoo called Serpent and the Rainbow. Came out in the 80s. And he lived in the Brazilian rainforest for a few years with the tribes doing postdoctoral research. He was with an Ivy League university too, and he was astounded at the concoctions they could mix together because they were extremely complex. There was heating and cooling periods, and the ingredient mix was such that if you were off by just a couple milligrams, it wouldn't turn out right. He described it as postdoctoral chemistry in the rainforest, and he asked them straight up, "How did you learn this?" And you know what the shaman told him? The plants speak to us in our dreams. Okay? Yeah. So we're so far disconnected from the reality of this world now, it isn't funny, right? And another fellow I knew had a great line. He was very, very well read in the world's ancient scriptures, and he said, in all of these myths and fables and in the Bible, the story always starts in a garden and ends in a city. That's the cycle. So we're at the end of the cycle now, right? And it's going to come crashing down. I truly believe that this fifth world that the Hopi and all the other Aboriginal cultures talk about, it truly is coming in. And they say that the rattling of the world will be so significant that if you haven't reduced your life to planting food, you're not going to make it. So, and I agree with all of these things. So if plants can speak to us, why can't we in the Western world? Why don't we have any people like that? Why would it only be given to these people running around in loincloths in the rainforest? because they're living correctly and they're not polluting their minds, because the human being is an instrument created by an intelligent designer. And, we talk about the Satanists taking over our society. We're all 80% satanic if we're living in the first world. We grew up in their education system from daycare, 1 year old, junior kindergarten at 4 years old, and right on up to our university educations. It totally scarifies our inner landscape for any intuitive learning and any object or data that would come from what we would call in the Western tradition an awakened imagination. And it's really sad. I can't believe we're having this great conversation in the middle of the night on YouTube with it's nice to be talking again.
Yeah, and 30 people
Well,
are
I'm
hanging
hoping,
out. It's
I'm
good.
hoping I'm as smart as you one day. I mean, you guys hear the stuff that's going on. I think along the lines that you guys are talking about, but I can't formulate the thought process and actually get it out there and say it as so succinctly as like what you just said there. So I feel like a fucking idiot most of the time when I hear it put forth so well, but it's still enjoyable to hear it this way. But because I go back to something like the Chinese. I mean, the first person who was able to figure out gunpowder, something so simple, you would think it's 3 ingredients, but it is so specific on the amount that you need to make it explode the way it is, and that it is so old. We have so many of these products that you literally take these plants and have to put them together in the right concentrations to come up with the stuff that these ancient tribes would use, that if you use too much of one thing, it's medicine. If you use it too much of another way, it's a poison and it's going to kill you. We're just so disconnected, and the same thing with parts and everything else that I like to look at that way. I literally think that of course it would offend most religions, but we have been around here for so long on this planet that there have been other civilizations that have done what we've done at this point, left the tribes in the plant world and shamans and talking to, using the plants to be able to talk to our animal counterparts and these other things in nature, to where we're talking to other interdimensional beings trying to get some kind of information, the way that I think that Tesla and some of these other people did. Even George Washington was supposed to have had some type of encounter out in the woods at one point when he was stressed about what one of his the situations around the battles, that he had something that could have been seen as like an alien encounter or some other type of interdimensional being out in the forest, that if we connect and we're so in tune with nature to where we can figure out these things on a basic level, that we'll be fine and survive. But we've come up to this arc of technology to where we're just so dependent on these people that are behind the transhumanist movement that want to get us away from this connectivity to nature and turn us into these cyborgs, because they think that is the end-all be-all of progression for the human races, to turn us into these machines to where we will all become part of the hive mind and the Borg.
Good word there, connectivity.
Yeah,
connectivity.
we're just cycling through. We're just going
but natural connectivity to interconnected through the hive mind. Yeah. So instead of having the true spirit of life, the true, speech that we would have talking to the birds and to the plants and letting them talk to us, that goes away and becomes, the internet of all things. Basically, is that we become a hive mind and linked to each other, and it's basically this form of mental masturbation that is actually amplified by an artificial intelligence that builds on what we feed it. And at that point, we're no longer human anymore. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I understand what a lot of transhumanists try to do, but when you take the outside stimulus and the ability to learn, and turn it into basically math, right? And just try to figure out better equations and have it work that way, then we lose who we were. And I don't think there's any coming back from that. I think we talk about societies ending that have come here before us. Many of them were destroyed along the way from some kind of natural calamity. But we'd be the first one, I think, that would ever destroy our very, created, our being, a very created being, right? And have it replaced. Because you can always come back. There's some way to come back. You can have a believe in reincarnation or a karmic cycle or whatever it might be. There's some way for your soul to, have a return trip maybe, right? Or go somewhere else and maybe make a loop and come back in another form. But if you take that away by locking us in this prison that we created the prison that we're going to stay in, right? I just thought the what you're talking about, the speech there, I thought was cool.
Well, you know what? The time has come. The time has come. So here we go. Bruce, you said something, or I was going to play this earlier tonight, and I didn't, but you just said something, and it's funny because I've had this all lined up earlier. So here we go. We'll go out with this. You guys, thanks a lot. We'll see you tomorrow night, huh? I'm beat to a pulp. So, we'll check you out tomorrow night. Thanks, 202. Thanks, Snoopy. Thanks, everybody over in the chat room. We appreciate everybody. Patreon, Into the Microcosm. If you got something, we'd appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Take it easy.
There's a thin, thin line. But just round the corner, there's a change in design. I wish I could walk away and dig what the preacher said. But those words don't satisfy me no more. There's a crack in the world. There's a crack in the world. There's a crack in the world. Just 50 more years, we're all gonna know why, when, where, how, and who gets to go. So let's all have a good time before the great divide. 'Cause things will start separating come 2025. So look for the subtle.
I want to point back to these lyrics. This was 1977. Listen to this.
And who gets to go?
Hold on. Listen.
Just 50 more years, we're all gonna know why, when, where, how, and who gets to go. So let's all have a good time before the great divide. 'Cause things will start separating come 2025.
2025, man. Things are going to start separating come 2025.